The Saturday nighter for round 2, the Western Bulldogs in their first game at Docklands of the young season. They were beat up by the Demons last Saturday night, but when Marcus Bontempelli is playing football, he's always ready to dazzle. He's under the roof tonight in the clean conditions up against Ross Lyon St Kilda, the 2.0 version. They've got an injury list as long as your arm, but if you think that discounts them, just ask Fremantle if they're any good, coming off a first-up victory last Sunday. This is Grandstand AFL Saturday night footy at Docklands. Corbin Middlemass in commentary. There is no late change. Robbie McComb is the sub for the Western Bulldogs, and Marcus Windhager back from a broken hand, the sub for the Saints. Jess Webster's here to call it all with me. Good evening, Jess.
G'day, Corby. Good to be here. Plenty of intrigue around this match tonight. Obviously, the Dogs, as you mentioned, they want to bounce back from that loss against Melbourne last week. Only 2 goals from their 4 forwards last week, missing 1 in Rory Lobb tonight. So interesting to see how their forward line functions. And as for St Kilda, I think we'll find out if last week was a bit of a fluke, if they were running high on spirit, or if this underman outfit really is the real deal.
They've got their 150th birthday next week, the Saints, which is a huge occasion on Saturday night. They're celebrating all their former champions, and one of them is in the box with us tonight. Luke Pauly also happened to put a nice big shiny gold medal around his neck while playing for Collingwood. It's the second game, Pauly, you're at today. Welcome to you.
Yeah, thanks, Corp. It is. I've had a big dose of footy today. I took the 2 little ones to the MCG, or 2 of my 3 little ones to the MCG to watch, well, what really is the best ticket in town at the moment, it must be said, the Pies, but we won't talk about that because we're here tonight, as you said. And you're right, Jess, they were under the microscope this week, the Dogs, weren't they? Not only for last week's performance, but when they perform like they do and allow Melbourne to score like they did, people tend to go back and look back at last year as well. And there does seem to be a bit of pattern behaviour here for me in terms of how they defend on turnover and stop multiple goals, and the coach was under fire, their senior players are under fire, so expect them to respond tonight. And looking forward to having a look at this Saints team. A lot of new faces, some new old faces in the coaches' boxes, we know. And look, you wouldn't think that, Murph, that they're going to test the Bulldogs from an offensive point of view as much as Melbourne did last week. But what we know they will do is be really disciplined. We saw that last week. They really frustrated and strangled Fremantle here under the roof, which we know that's where they play their best footy. So expect them to try and do something similar to this Bulldogs team tonight. It's
a St Kilda game, so no Brennan Goddard, but we do have another number 1 pick. We just collect them here on Grandstand AFL. He's a regular member of our team. He also played 300 games, all Australians, everything else. His name is Mark Murphy. Hello, Murph.
Corby, Jess, Bally, good to be here. I really enjoy the Saints jersey. That's a mid-90s sort of throwback when it first came out. I reckon they played in the grand final back in...
They did, in 97.
97 wearing that.
Yeah, it's the hot cross buns jumper with the big cross in the middle.
I just think of Heatley every time I see that. I don't know why. It just into my brain just comes Jason Heatley for whatever reason, but I love their jumper.
Who wins tonight?
I think the Bulldogs tonight. I think they've just got too much class across the field, but Ball's right. You know, the defensive structure which Ross Lyon brings to his football club. They were terrific last week against Fremantle, so it's sort of been an area of the Bulldogs game that is obviously their strength, their offensive weapons, because they've got so many throughout that midfield. But the Saints defend really, really hard, like their life depends on it, so it'll be a great contest.
You know, I love a lame segue as the sort of radio announcer guy. Speaking of another Carlton captain and All-Australian, Karen Peterson is with us again tonight on the boundary on Grandstand AFL. Good evening, Kez.
G'day, Corby, team upstairs. It's great to be down here. There's a very healthy crowd growing down here at ground level, and the Bulldog supporters have come out hoping that their team can get the win for them tonight on the back of a disappointing loss last week. They've had a good start to the night. Marcus Bontempelli's won the toss. They're going to be kicking to the left of the radio dial. And as you've already mentioned, Robbie McComb is the sub for the Dogs. Marcus Windhager comes back in for the sub for St Kilda. He broke his hand, as you already mentioned, in the pre-season, so his first game for tonight.
Thanks, Kez. Zane Cordy up against his old team for the first time, the Premiership Bulldog now in St Kilda colours in his second game. Plenty of intrigue in it. The 1-0 Saints under Ross Lyon up against Marcus Bontempelli and his Bulldogs searching for their first win of the young season. The Saints and the Dogs on a Saturday night on Grandstand AFL. You're with Jess Webster.
Marshall will take on English in the ruck, who wins the first tap for the Dogs down to McRae. Got a hand pass away, only as far as Marshall. His hand pass smothered. Steele running after it. He's bumped by McRae. Gresham picks it up. His kick smothered by Bontempelli. Still inside the centre square. Marshall, clever tap to Gresham from the wing. Sends the Saints inside 50, looking for Cordy. Knocked away from him. He follows up at ground level. Gives it to Hill. His hand pass over the head of Philip Pope, but he's good enough to step around the body for the Saints first. Great start to the Saints. They lead 1 straight 6 to the Dogs, yet to score after 30 seconds in the first term on Grandstand AFL.
Yeah, great start. Great to see this young, prodigious talent get on the scoreboard. It's his first goal. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Got
Did he get one last week? He got one last week. I was
Yep.
thinking of young Caminiti, but nice little assist from Hill as well. Just looking down, is it Liam Jones? We know he copped that knock to his neck last week. I think he's okay though, Murph. It looked like he was in the thick of it again there, but no, he looks like he's okay, shaking off the trainer. But yeah, great to see this young talent. He's been likened to the opposition skipper coming through the junior ranks.
Isn't it?
Yeah, it is. But listening to him talk a couple of times, it's the sort of thing that he seems like he'll take in his stride. So lovely start from the Saints. Great clearance work from Gresham as well.
Pick 10 out of Woodville, West Torrens. His father Sam actually played for Footscray, going back to the mid-90s, played a couple of games back in the middle of the ground. Rowan Marshall wins the tap down to Gresham at the drop. Hand pass away to Ross, his first game for the year. Kicks to centre half forward, running underneath it. Owens spills through to Crozier, loose handball, forward pocket for the Saints, invites Wood on in, trying to get back onto his left boot. He shares it with Owens, 2 in a row for the Saints. And Mitch Owens doubles up for St Kilda in the opening 2 minutes. And some nervy moments already for Luke Beveridge and the Bulldogs. St Kilda 2 straight, the Dogs yet to score. 2 minutes played. Luke Ball, Mark Murphy, Grandstand AFL.
Well, we talked about Saints being a defensive outfit. They've started on like a house on fire. But the one player that I really enjoy seeing inside the centre square bounce is Jay Gresham. He's been in there twice. First 2 centre bounces, got the ball forward on both occasions. He's a live wire that I've always been excited to watch up forward, but great to see him in the middle, starting in there and getting his hands dirty early and getting the ball forward. He's a real class act, and hopefully for the Saints' sake and for his, he can get a good run at it this season.
Great battle in the ruck, isn't it? There's 2 young star rucks of the competition, English and Marshall. Whoever gets on top there will have a big say in the result.
Marshall this time rises high and wins a free kick for a ruck infringement. So he'll send St Kilda forward once more as Crouch on short. Hand passes to him now. Hand passes inboard to Wayne Miller. Back to Marshall from the centre square. It's a shank inside 50 and it's been chopped off by Scott of the Bulldogs, who marks at centre half back.
Anthony Scott, neat left footer. He's going to kick to a contest on the wing. Darcy arrives late, got hands to it. Close to the boundary line. Garcia tackled out of play. Well, Liam Stocker, the former Blue Murph in jumper number 14. So a nice length for both of you tonight. Paulie's old number and your former teammate.
It is good to see him out there on an AFL list and playing good footy and wearing the 14. Paulie said that it's got to be a hard nut to wear that number.
Well, they must rate him because Jaron Geary wore it last as well, who's obviously the ex-captain of the club. So it's a good sign.
From the throw-in, Marshall just gets boot to ball, but it's a turnover straight to Bailey Dale and marks at left half back for the Dogs. Saints up by 12 through 3.5 minutes of the opening term. Dale content just to hold things up momentarily and then kicks backwards inside defensive 50 to Bruce. He'll want to switch play to the city side of the ground. Chips short to Jones. He chips short to Crozier, who's marked at right half back.
That's the way they started last week too. You'd just like to see them at some stage today be a little bit more bold with their ball movement. We've seen the best teams over the first couple of rounds be a bit more attacking.
Trying to land it on a dime down the wing, and Jack Steele awake to it. Floats through, takes the intercept mark for St Kilda. 4 minutes in, 2 straight to yet to score. The Saints with the jump. A kick from Steele out to half forward, and Josh Bruce is there to take the intercept mark. The former Saint himself obviously played for GWS and then St Kilda. On the goal kicking at the other end of the ground for St Kilda. Obviously back in his years as a forward. Back in 2015, he heads to Crozier, who marks back pocket. Short kick to Scott. He marks for the Bulldogs again. The slow kick mark approach has the footy at half back.
Saints already looking well organised in defence, working hard together.
And chips to Crozier, who had to collect it on the bounce. It's not a great kick forward. Past Bontempelli. Stocker lays a tackle, and we've got a ball up. Still defensive side of the wing. And the Bulldogs' defensive end of the ground. They're yet to go past halfway in the last couple of minutes, sharing the footy in their back half. English and Marshall tangle in the ruck. English wins it down. Bontempelli pounces from the wing. Just got boot to ball. Sends the Dogs inside 50. West has to make a contest. Out the back, Darcy is there. Has to turn tackler. And that would be a throw in. 40 metres around from the Dogs' goal.
That Ross line trade is there immediately, isn't it? They look so well organised without the footy.
You can tell they've obviously been doing a lot of work on their zone defence. They've already had 2 intercept possessions and they've just set up really quickly so far.
Forward 50 stoppage for the Dogs. Marshall, little bump to Norton. Both have a fumble. Spits back to centre half forward for the Bulldogs. Jamara clean. Picks it up. Tackled. Lost it. That'll be holding the ball. And Ross takes the advantage. Slick hands to Burns. The 1-2 with Hill. And Burns away. Outer edge of the centre square. Kicks to the open side of the ground. Hits up Philippou, who takes the mark front edge of the centre square. The lefty just bangs it long inside the forward line. Not a great option. 2 back for the Dogs. And Jones takes the intercept mark for the Bulldogs.
Across the face of goal to Bruce, who chips short to Liberatore. He then chips it short to McRae, who's marked it right half back. Patient footy from the Dogs. He lets to kick short to Williams. And then loops the hand pass over the top to Dale. Stocker with the tackle. Dale hand passes to Norton, then hand passes defensively to Williams. Under pressure with the kick. Just has to bang it long to half forward to a contest. Ugle-Hagan in front. Battle did well. Kills the contest. Sends it over the line for a throw in. Right half forward for the Western Bulldogs. They trail by 12 points. Yet to score through 6.5 minutes of the opening term.
It's looking well organised, aren't they, at the moment, Ball, the Saints?
And they would have watched Melbourne do that last week against this Bulldogs team to great effect. So they've done their homework, and so far so good. Bulldogs really struggling to move the ball with any sort of fluency.
Free kick for Rowan Marshall, just ragdolled at the boundary throw-in. English doing the ragdolling on that occasion. Coming into his own, but gives away a free kick there as Marshall goes long down the wing. Big leap, and Kanamiti rips it down off the roof. Rolls around onto his right boot from that southern wing. Kicks inside the forward 50. They're standing for it, and leaping as Crozier takes the intercept mark. Higgins went front and centre. The ball never came down. Hand pass away to Richards for the Bulldogs. Short kick to Smith, who marks at centre half back. 2 straight to yet to score. St Kilda by 12.
Oh, Smith has turned it over to Seb Ross. Players streaming inside forward 50 for the Saints. One of them is Gresham, who marks in the right forward pocket. He's 30 out from goal, 15 in from the boundary.
Well, it's big blue, wasn't it? Bally Bailey Smith just went for a 20-metre kick and just completely shanked her. It just wasn't there. And Jake Gresham was so quick just to see the turnover and just bolt forward.
He'll set up for a kick around the corner. On the left. Perfect execution. And the Saints have 3 straight. They lead 3 straight 18 to the Dogs, yet to score 8 minutes into the first quarter on Grandstand AFL. Your experts are Luke Ball and Mark Murphy.
Yeah, a couple of just poor unforced errors, really. I think it was Crozier prior to that, his first game in, so just finding his feet a bit. Bailey Smith, though, such a highly skilled player.
They've been a bit slow off the turnover, haven't they? They've had probably 3 or 4 intercept marks in their D50, but they've just been so slow, the Bulldogs, to try and get it moving. Love to see them just go through the corridor, and as soon as they see someone, just hit it. They've just been a bit slow and stagnant, and it's given the Saints time to set up.
We've seen the Dogs, Bally, in sort of high-stakes games. Obviously, the grand final, the final last year against Freo last week, struggle to turn around momentum in play. Great challenge for them here against a team with an injury list as long as your arm, and they're 3 goals down. Let's see how they can flip things here, the Western Bulldogs. They've lost all 3 centre breaks so far and conceded the first 3 goals. Back in the middle, English down to Smith. Hand pass, a turnover. Steele got it for the Saints. Gives it to Clark. Gets the centre clearance again. Kicks out to half forward. Free kick going against Gresham. Thought he had the mark, but just whacking the arms of Hayden Crozier at the wrong time. So the former Docker to take it off half back. He kicks back out towards that southern wing. McLean onto it. Pressure coming from the back. Run down. Ball spills free. Now there's Patton for the Saints. The 1-2 with Sinclair. Patton takes on Bailey Smith. Awkward kick down the wing, and Daniel for the Dogs.
Hand passes to Dale. He's under pressure and stripped of it. The umpire this time calls holding the ball. Great pressure, Saints. Now take the free kick on the wing outer side. Butler flares it out wide to Wood, and here's the run. Gives it off to Hill. Hand pass over the top to Clark from left half forward. Spears a pass into the pocket looking for Cordy. Fell at his feet and ricochets off him out of bounds for a throw in, 40 around from the Saints goal.
Looks like Riley Garcia's got the tagging roll on Jack Sinclair. obviously identified as one of their prime movers.
English from the ball in, jams it on the boot, and now Bontempelli from the centre square. It's a searching kick into the path of Baker, who marks at left half forward.
Former Demon, second game with the Dogs, lifts a hand pass over the man on the mark to Keith, who's a long way from goal, just pokes a neat left footer to Bontempelli. Battle in the other direction, spoils and clips Bont on the way through. And the Dogs' captain is slow to rise. Here's Butler off the back flank for St Kilda, kicks down the wing, and an intercept mark again for Josh Bruce.
Didn't he?
Yeah. Bontempelli with the trainer, staying out there, back on his feet now, but sore at left half forward. The kick from Bruce marked by Keith, so he takes some ground and then goes long to the top of the goal square, reaching for it. Norton, is he going to be paid the mark? The ump says yes. He had enough of it. And Norton will shoot from 20.
13s, I reckon.
Well, he didn't even believe himself. He gave the handball off, but geez, he's got away with one here.
Bont staying out there. Karen Peterson on the boundary. Kez.
Liam Jones has just gone down to the rooms. He's gone down for a concussion test after that knock that occurred in the first couple of moments. The doctors have been watching back and forth on the video. He's just gone down to the rooms.
Thanks, Kez, back from that neck complaint last week. Left the ground in a neck brace. As Aaron guilty. Misses to the near side. They say in the NBA that ball don't lie. There's a bit of that there. That's a bit of an even up for the Saints. 3 straight to 1 behind. Dogs' first score. Saints by 17 points, 12 minutes in.
Sinclair brings it in for the Saints. Chip short to Dougal Howard, who chips it out wide to Battle. Long kick down the wing. Clark dropped perhaps what he should have taken. The pressure applied by Daniel. Hand passes to Wood. Now inboard to Sinclair. Loops the hand pass over the top to Clark. From the wing. Kick up towards half forward is marked by Cordy. 2 kicks from goal. He wheels around on the right. Sends it into the corridor. Caminiti in front. Can't complete the mark. Butler picks it up. Gives it to Marshall. He's stripped of it. Picked up by Butler. The umpire says play on. Butler not sure where to go. Eventually wheels around on the right. Chips it to half forward. And the intercept mark is taken by Keith.
Said Higgins to beat at the height advantage there and cashes in on it. He goes short to Bruce in the back pocket. Hand pass away to Dale. He hands it out of the defensive arc to Baker, who's against the boundary line southern side. Kicks down that City wing. McLean just pushed out of it. The Saints with the numbers at the drop. Battle got rid of the Bulldog, and Sinclair wins the footy. Kicks inboard to Clark. Marks outer edge of the centre square. Hand pass back to Wangadeen Miller on the wing. Through the hands of Ross, and now to Sinclair. Standing start. Kicks inside 50. Crozier over the pack. Just kills it out of bounds. And a throw in forward pocket for the Saints. They pick the first 3 goals. They lead by 17 points midway through the opening term.
And dominating play. They were 10 inside 50s to 3, the Saints. They've got to try and really capitalise on this.
Ball back into play. English in front position. Battling against Cordy in the ruck. Ball spills to ground. Butler lays a tackle on English. Brings him to ground. Locked up. So we've got a ball up 40 metres out from the Saints goal. 3 straight to 1 behind. English with the tap. Down to Liberatore. Now it ricochets to Ross, who jams it on the left boot towards full forward. Keith in a 1-on-1 against Caminiti. Ball out of play for a boundary throw-in. Jess Webster and Corbin Middlemass calling the action this evening. Luke Ball, Mark Murphy and Kara Peterson, your call team.
Yeah, just looking back at some of the Liam Jones vision, it doesn't look too good for Liam, unfortunately.
Doing that concussion test at the moment from the boundary throw-in. Cordy went leaping over the back of English. Another pack forms at their feet, and we'll have a ball up 25 out from the Saints goal.
I'm hoping not, but it'd be a horror start, wouldn't it, to his rebooted career at the Dogs. Hopefully he can get himself back out there.
Neck injury subbed out early last week, and now a concussion test in the opening minutes tonight from the restart. Liberatore, hand pass close to the boundary line, kept alive by Owens. He hooks a kick straight into Bruce and ricochets out of bounds. Now, the other game tonight is being played over in Perth. If you want to listen to it, the ABC Listen app, download that, search lower right corner ABC AFL, and on the ABC AFL Extra button you can listen to the Dockers and the Roos. Early doors there, both teams with a behind in the opening 7 minutes, but the big news came when the team sheets landed. There's no Nat Fyfe, so he's a laid out for Fremantle, and Jai Amos takes his place in the team.
Ball up in the pocket for the Saints. Cordy palms it down to Ross. Left foot snap around the corner. Big contest to come. Crozier did well, brought it to ground. Spills to Daniel. He hand passes into space, crashing through his Owens. He's stripped of it and then turns tackler. And we've got a ball up once more. 30 out from the Saints goal.
Dare say Ross Lyon will be loving these repeat stoppages inside 50, Bally.
Up it goes. Again, deep inside 50 for the Saints. Cordy wins the tap, but his opposing ruckman English grabs the footy. The Saints have got him. They'll do it all again. Right on cue, Murph. Throw a blanket over around 25 players here. From the restart, Liberatore, first touch, hurried kick out of the defensive arc, Garcia onto it, Sinclair chases him, off his non-preferred left boot, Garcia kicks down the wing, no mark, Scott flew, now Bontempelli scrapping for it with battle, Patton puts his head over it, wins it for the Saints, hands it out to Marshall, sweeping handball in front of Sinclair, waits for it to sit, kicks into oncoming traffic, and McRae with the smother, Sinclair follows up with the defensive act, lays a tackle, says, ball up. Just in front of the St Kilda bench. Saints are on tonight, 3 straight, Dogs 1 behind. 16 minutes into the opening term, Saints by 17.
Important smother there, Jack McRae. Just need to get himself back into this game by little 1%ers like that, the Dogs leaders.
Marshall down to Hill, who kicks towards half forward. It's off hands. Butler comes streaming through, just gets the hand pass away, only as far as Richards of the Dogs. Shares it with McRae, then from left half back, sends it long down the wing to a contest. Offhand, Stocker picks it up for the Saints. His hand pass a little ill-directed. Jamar Ugle-Hagen's in there for the Dogs. West got a fist in there. He paddles it only to Patton, though, of the Saints. Gives it to Steele. And now to Howard from right half back. Chips it forward and finds Hill defensive side of the wing.
4th year at his 3rd club, Bradley Hill kicks in the middle of the ground for Seb Ross, who marks and plays on immediately. Long kick back inside 50. Higgins let it bounce and tumbles through to Bruce of the Dogs. Off the back flank, overcooks it on the kick. He missed Baker. Wood takes the intercept mark, looks to Caminiti in the pocket. And Caminiti marks left forward pocket against the boundary line for the Saints. The man picked up in the pre-season out of the Carlton reserves.
Sorry, Corb, just going to say, classic. He's been good, Josh Bruce, under real pressure, but not having the right foot there and trying to squeeze one round on the left foot, over kicking it, causes a turnover. He has looked good. He looks at natural forward, doesn't he? He does. Presents at the footy, good hands.
A man they call the Hammer. Snappy and he misses to the near side. Behind. Brennan Goddard told me last week it's as simple as they asked him at the club what his nickname was. He said Cammer. One of the boys said, "Why do they call you Hammer?" And then that's his nickname. Now he's the Hammer.
Simple places, footy club sometimes.
Saints by 18 points as many minutes into the opening term.
Dale from the kick in. Long kick to the dockside wing. Scott against Stocker wins the ground level footy. Ugle-Hagen off to Smith. And now hand passes to Dale. His hand pass has put Duray under pressure. Dale gets it back. Over to Duray in front of the interchange gates. It's a good ball to Ugle-Hagen, just didn't have the carry. And then he's tackled and dispossessed by Battle. The umpire says play on. Saints come up with it. Stocker, his hand pass missed Clark close to the boundary line and eventually over and out for a throw-in. City wing.
Their pressure intensity is through the roof at the moment, the Saints. Even when they're not there to apply that pressure, it's inferred, isn't it? And some guys who are just missing targets, which usually they would hit because of that pressure that Saints are putting on them around the ball.
First 3 goals of the game for the Saints from the boundary throw-in. Darcy rucking, grabs it for the Bulldogs, got it out to McRae. Forward of the wing, he kicks deep to Norton. Bontempelli on the outskirts of the pack. No mark, spills down to Wilkie of the Saints. Hand pass to Wangadeen Millera. Out of defence, wanted Ross. Spoil from Darcy. Forces the ball to ground. Ross regathers. And turns and kicks hurriedly down the wing. Caminiti arriving late. Flies for it. Spills to Burns. He got it to Owens. Hand pass out to Clark. There's a free kick and advantage applied as Caminiti goes racing away down the wing. Kicks inside the forward arc. Oh, Richards had a fresh air shot. Missed it completely. Follows up. Scoops it out to Dale's advantage. And it's going to be a throw against Richards.
I was looking at the wrong umpire, Murph. It was the 4th, wasn't it? That's what he's there for. It was certainly a throw.
Just tucked away in the pocket, wasn't he?
Poor old Ed Richards has a 30 seconds that he'll want back, but
just running in waves, the Saints, aren't they? They're getting forward of the ball really well. They're competing hard, but they're just finding space forward, guys who can't impact.
Hill stabs it short inside the forward arc, and that'll work out okay. Hits up the captain, Jack Steele, who marks still on a 45-degree angle, a little closer to goal.
I was just saying, when they can't impact the ball, the Saints players, rather than just running back willy-nilly, they're actually getting forward in dangerous spaces so that when they are intercepting the ball in the D50 or through the midfield, they've got options ahead of the ball.
Jack Steele, we spoke last week on ABC Radio that the coach put it on him as soon as he arrived in the pre-season. Was he doing everything he could to lead this team? Jack Steele with the Saints red hot. He kicks their 4th, and it's the 4th of the game. 4-1 to 0-1. The Bulldogs goalless through the first 20 minutes. St Kilda by 24 points. On Grandstand AFL, Mike Murphy and Luke Ball.
He did, Corb. There's the word came out that in true Ross style, he said, look, you're not a bad player. You're not a bad player, captain. But I've come from Fife, Rewalt and Pavlich, all right? So you've got a fair way to go. And we know he's been such a great player, terrific player, hasn't he, for the last couple of years for the Saints. And that's one thing he at his best we know he can do, is sneak forward and kick a goal. But some worrying signs here for the Dogs. I think you're right, Murph. They look a bit, they look slower. They look listless, and they're really struggling to bring the ball back inside. It's completely on the Saints' terms. They're owning the corridor. They're forcing him wide down the line. And conversely, when they get the ball, they're looking a lot more attacking.
Back in the middle, English gives it to Smith, and the Dogs send it forward to full forward. Ugle-Hagan worked his way to the front and then chases after it at ground level. Gets the hand pass out. Darcy is pushed over the line by Stocker, and we've got a ball in 30 around from the Dogs' goal. Trail by 24 points, yet to score a goal into time on of the first quarter on Grandstand AFL.
The senior players really need to lift here. They need to find a way to hit the scoreboard and settle the team down.
Marshall against Darcy in the ruck. Darcy palms it down. Battle has to slip the tackle. Liberatore can't do so. Umpire says, give it to me. Ball up, 40 out from the Dogs' goal.
I feel like Jack McRae's working pretty hard, but not too many helpers at the moment. Bailey Smith got that last clearance, but Liberatore, Bontempelli, got to get moving.
Darcy palms it down. Bailey Smith got his arm free. Hand pass away to Liberatore under pressure. High up and under kick, still inside the forward arc. Marshall knocks it away. West has a fumble once, twice, and then just knocks it through to Bailey Smith. For the Dogs, still at centre half forward. Hand pass to Libber, a little too hot. He coughs it up. Gresham for the Saints. Hand pass to Crouch. Goes back to Ross by hand. Kicks down the wing. Higgins a little shove on Richards. Spills the mark. It's out of play. And a throw in on the city wing at Docklands. The lid on tonight in the Western Bulldogs home game. So they're decked out in blue with the red and white hoop around the middle and the blue shorts. As Murph mentioned earlier, these great 97 grand final throwback jumpers for the Saints with a cross down the middle and the red and white accent with the white shorts.
Steele punches it forward. Daniel intercepts for the Dogs, gives it to Williams from centre wing, kicks up towards half forward. Saints have the numbers, and Wanganeen Miller takes the intercepting mark at left half back.
Plus 11 contested possessions, plus 11 tackles. They're bad numbers for the Dogs.
Wanganeen Miller spears a pass to the wing. Cordy can't trap it. Ross picks it up. He's tackled by a couple of Dogs. Close to the boundary line, the umpire says, I'll have it. Ball up just inside the field of play.
Then wound up the Saints. We know the Dogs' hands is one of their strengths. They love to flick it round. The Saints' pressure has been superb in this first quarter.
English wins the tap. It's straight down the Saints' way to Crouch, who tumbles a kick down that city wing. Collected by Cordy. Gets a hand pass in the middle of the ground to Filippo. He links up with Steele. Kicks inside the forward arc. Turns it over. And Duray with the intercept mark. Top of the defensive goal square. So Saints by 4 goals. They've kicked the only 4 of the match. 23 played opening quarter.
It's probably the only area of the game the Saints are falling down at the moment. So they're inside 50 kicks. They're just kicking it willy-nilly rather than putting into space of a teammate and letting him run onto the footy.
Crozier long down the wing. They scrap for it. West spins out of trouble. His hand pass looking for Dale. He's trapped immediately by Patton. The umpire says ball up, defensive side of the wing. Dogs still searching for their first goal of the opening term.
15-5, the inside 50 counts at Kilda's way.
English and ruck against Marshall. Palms it down to McRae. Gets the hand pass out to Caleb Daniel. Hurried kick off the boot down the wing. Bounces in front of Wanganeen Miller. Smith coming the other way. Now it spills to Scott. His hand pass intercepted by Wanganeen Miller. Had a fumble. And Ugle-Hagan comes in. Steele rips it. Gives it to Butler. Jams it on the boot towards half forward. No one there. Keith takes the mark for the Dogs.
Keith across the half-back line, didn't quite hit Bruce, got to him on the hop. Now he's closed down by Higgins. Hand pass away to Duray, still in the defensive arc. He slips Cordy, and Duray kicks hurriedly out to the city wing, and Baker takes the mark for the Bulldogs. Still hunting their first goal of the night. Baker sends it down the wing, there's no one there, and Sinclair takes the intercept mark for St Kilda. 4-1 to 1 behind. He goes across the ground to Patton. He heads all the way across the half-back line to Nasiah. Wanganeen Miller plays on immediately, kicks into the middle of the ground for Steele. Takes the mark overhead. Steele's going to come out wide to Bradley Hill, who'll mark in front of the interchange gates. Back on the 45 to Stocker. Logo broadcast wing. St Kilda 4-1, Dogs 1 behind. And now the switch again with a long kick from one side of the centre square to the other for Wilkie. He puts them inside the forward arc. Backing back Williams. Nice intercept mark. Half back for the Bulldogs. Karen Peterson on the boundary.
The Bulldogs fans are breathing a sigh of relief down here. Liam Jones has come back out, bouncing around on the boundary, and he's looking like he's ready to get back into the game.
That is good news, Kez.
It is good news, but it's not going to solve the problem that they're facing at the moment in terms of this ball movement and their inability to break a line and put this Saints team defence under any pressure at all.
The Dogs share it around defensive 50, ends up with Keith at left half back, gets around Hill and chips short to Richards.
So is that a willingness on-field bally or an instruction? Where does that stagnant approach come from?
Possibly both. It could be. I mean, this guy's important. He can break a line. It's a bit of both, I think, Corb.
Richards kicks to a one-on-one involving Bontempelli. It spills to Wanganeen Miller. Jams it on the boot down the line. And as far as Keith of the Dogs, who chips in board to Daniel, who's marked adjacent to the centre square. Still on centre wing. He'll send the Dogs into attack. Bontempelli, the target. Couldn't bring down the mark. Follows up at ground level. Now McLean didn't keep it alive. And we've got a ball in, 55 around from the Western Bulldogs goal at left half forward. They trail by 24 points, 26 minutes into the opening term.
It's a side of the inexperience of the Saints forward line that they're not 6 or 8 goals ahead, Murphys. If they can somehow get the quarter time, the Dogs, and even pinch one here, 3 goals down, it'll be a win for them.
Late going opening term, Saints with the only 4 goals. Marshall wins it down, but McLean extracts it from the stoppage. Hand pass over his head. Bontempelli's onto it, gives it to McRae. Hot footy, Owen's got him. Ball spits out to Crouch, hands it to Steele. Floats a hand pass down the wing, and it's out of play next to the Dogs bench. Score update, Murph, from over in Perth. North Melbourne have kicked the first 3 goals of the game. So the Roo Boys 3-1-19 against the Fifeless Dockers. 3 behind. So an early jump for North Melbourne, pardon the pun. Time on opening quarter over in the West.
Got them on the hop.
Just wave a few more lines in as the night goes on.
Ball back into play. English rips it out of the ruck, jams it on the boot towards half forward. It's bounced out of play and the umpire says insufficient intent. Free kick to St Kilda. Stocker sends it back down the line. Caminiti rises high.
Athletic, isn't he?
Type, isn't he? Yeah, he's got some
bit of bounce.
Yeah,
vertical, as they
arms,
say. Yeah.
and against Dale as well. Caminiti thumps it down the line. And that is a good pack mark taken by Jones, who's back on the field. Good to see.
Had a concussion test. After a hit in the opening couple of minutes, he left the ground last week in a neck brace after that sort of pinched nerve. He's returned to the Bulldogs. Year off last year, of course. Kicks to a contest on the wing. McRae to Dale by hand. He flicks it away to Geray in front of the interchange gates. Kicks a bomb down to half forward. Garcia's got a lot to do. Wilkie back in support. Garcia in the end forces it out of play. That's not bad. The neutral ball. And the boundary throwing 30 metres around from the Dogs' goal.
Did well there, Garcia, just to fight to get the ball to ground. It was a 2v1 there inside his forward 50 and gets a stoppage inside for the Bulldogs.
Saints 4-0 in this opening term. They lead by 24. Chance for the Western Bulldogs at attack. Ball flicked back into play. Bontempelli works his way to front position, punts it down to Liberatore. His hand pass to McRae and now shares it with Bontempelli to Smith. Runs around, jams it on the right boot towards full forward. It's off hands. West crashes the pack for the Dogs. Also Daniel, and the umpire says play on, no free kick. Picked up by West. As the siren sounds to mark the end of an impressive opening term to St Kilda. They lead the Western Bulldogs 4-1-25 to 1 behind. The goal kickers in that opening term, all singles to the Saints: Jade Gresham, Jack Steele, Mitch Owens and Mateus Filippo.
There's been another goal in Perth. It's another North Melbourne goal. So the Roos 4-1-25, Fremantle 3 behinds. Nat Pfeiffer laid out for the Dockers. Time on in the opening quarter. North Melbourne by 22 points, approaching quarter time in Perth. Under the roof here at Docklands, though, it's all St Kilda. The thoughts of Luke Ball and Mark Murphy coming up next on ABC Radio, Sport Digital, and now streaming on the ABC Listen app. Just look for the AFL button. This is Grandstand AFL.
What's the best thing in the world that's also on the ABC Listen app? The footy! This season, get your footy live and ad-free on the ABC Listen app. AFL, NRL, men's, women's. Whatever you fix, we've got you covered.
She's got it! Bye-bye! See you later!
Every goal, try, mark and tackle. Called by ABC Sport's expert commentary team. AFL and NRL, live and ad-free. Get it on the ABC Listen app.
Grandstand AFL.
Now streaming every match on the ABC Listen app.
Look for the AFL button.
From the wing, sends the Saints inside 50, looking for Cordy. Knocked away from him, he follows up at ground level, gives it to Hill. His hand pass over the head of Philip Poe, but he's good enough to step around the body for the Saints first.
Spills through to Crozier, loose handball, forward pocket for the Saints, invites Wood in, trying to get back onto his left boot. He shares it with Owens, 2 in a row for the Saints. And Mitch Owens doubles up for St Kilda in the opening 2 minutes.
Smith has turned it over to Seb Ross. Players streaming inside forward 50 for the Saints. One of them is Gresham, who marks in the right forward pocket. On the left. Perfect execution. And the Saints have 3 straight.
Hill stabs it short. Inside the forward arc, and that'll work out okay. Hits up the captain, Jack Steele, who marks. Jack Steele with the Saints red hot. He kicks their 4th. And it's the 4th of the game, 4-1 to 0-1.
The 2023 AFL season.
On radio,
ABC Sport Digital.
and now streaming on the ABC Listen app.
What a start for St Kilda under Ross Lyon. The second coming of Ross back at the Saints in 5 quarters of footy. They have now kept their opponents to 53 points collectively. The Dogs goalless in that opening term, just the one behind to show for it. St Kilda, by the way, 4-1-25, so it's the Saints by 24 points. A lot of questions ahead of Luke Beveridge and his team. They've got it all to do, Luke Ball and Mark Murphy.
Yeah, well, we're looking for a response after last week, the way they finished off the loss last week to the Demons from the Dogs, but it hasn't come, Murph, at all. It's been, well, that's as dominant a quarter of footy as we've seen from any team this year. Now, the scoreboard, as we said, towards the end, there hasn't reflected that, and that's probably more due to the Saints' lack of experience out there. We know no Max King. I mean, he would have been having a field day. So 16 inside 50s to 7. And I think the other thing is, with this Bulldogs team, we know how good they are with their hands around the footy, around clearances to get their players out and into space. So the order of the day is to pressure them. So they've been able to win the contest, the Saints, plus 10 in contested possession, and then out-tackle the Dogs as well, 30 to 14. So that couldn't get any worse for Luke Beveridge and his team. I guess, again, the good thing is that they've only conceded the 4 goals. So much for them to address and to work on. For the Saints, well, I'd say it's going 100% to plan at the moment, Murph. It's completely on their terms.
It is, because when I turned up here tonight, I thought, well, St Kilda midfield would be the Bulldogs midfield. Would probably be an area of the game which I thought the Bulldogs really had an edge on the Saints. But to the Saints' credit, they've been first class around the football. As you said, Bally, they've out-tackled, they've outworked them, they've out-hunted the football, they've been getting more numbers to every contest and then spreading really hard. It's actually been impressive to watch, because when the Bulldogs have got the ball forward on occasion, the Saints midfielders have worked back really hard, but there's been a couple that have just hung back a bit forward, so there's an outlet for those defenders from St Kilda to use the ball to, and the Bulldogs have sort of just rushed forward, not really thinking, not turning their head. So they've played a sort of almost a dumb brand, really, when they have got the ball forward, and that's been on very few occasions. But the midfield of the Saints have really just outworked them, but they've outsmarted them in the way in which they've gone about it. And I think if they just clean up a bit of their inside 50 decisions, the Saints, they'd be 7 or 8 goals in front at the moment. But they go in with a great lead. They've given away the one behind, and that was from a Josh Bruce, a Norton mark, which probably was sketchy at best. So they've done a lot right, the Saints, so far, and they've really impressed me by the way in which they've just their intensity around the football and around the contest. Yeah,
and the way they've been able to set up. So they've been able to 16 inside 50, so absolutely control field position, and then they have been able to really set up well behind the ball. From a team defence point of view, again, we saw Melbourne do it really well last week. Well, the Saints have brought that blueprint into the game, and they've just forced the Bulldogs wide. They've been happy to take it, which to me is the thing that needs to change. Now, whether it's a personnel thing, I mean, we know that Bailey Dale can do that, Taylor Duray, perhaps, Ed Richards, Jason Johannisson's not out there, we know tonight. Get some overlap run and be a bit bolder coming off half-back, especially when you turn the ball over, as you said. Usually, the opposition's out of position.
Yep.
try and access the corridor a little bit more. The Saints were able to do that. We saw a couple of times that beautiful kick inside from Brad Hill, opened up the space, opened up the ground, and got them a shot at goal. The Dogs really need to be a bit more attacking and bold with their ball movement in this second quarter.
18 Saints players have laid a tackle compared to the Dogs. Only 9 players have laid a tackle. Is that intent?
Yeah, of course it is. That's an effort thing. Yeah, so that's the most disappointing thing from the Bulldogs, especially coming off the way they finished off last week. So I'd hope that Bevo gave them a decent rev up at quarter time.
They've struggled in recent times to turn around momentum, the Bulldogs, when the game isn't on their terms. It certainly isn't here. After a dominant opening quarter from the Saints, they lead by 24 points. Second quarter underway. Dogs still goalless as English wins the hit out, but straight down to Steele. Hurried kick forward and Hill off the square takes the mark. Turns and rolls, kicks inside the forward 50. Phillippo the target, but he's outmarked. Favoured by the kick. Crozier at the back takes the intercept mark.
It's been pretty good, Crozier.
He's been very
stood
good.
Up, yeah, he made a couple of little blues early, but as I said, first game for the year, but they've been right. Him and Josh Bruce high in the possessions, and that's more of an indication of where the ball's been.
First game since round 16 last year. An emergency in round 1. Crozier kicks down the wing, but it's coming back. Wilkie for the Saints. Hand pass back into dispute. Ross extracts it though. Back to Wilkie. High half forward. Hand pass away to Steele. Rolls onto his right boot. Sells the dummy around Libba. Now Steele kicks inside the forward 50. Pack forms. Jones swaps it down to Dale. Kicks out of the defensive 50.
His kick had too much on it for Dure, who has to tackle Steele close to the boundary line. And eventually it goes out of bounds. So we've got to throw in 55 around from the Saints goal. 4 goals to nothing in that opening term. Freo
have a goal just before quarter time, so 1-3-9 the Dockers. They trailed North Melbourne 4-1-25, so the Roos by 16 points, closing in on quarter time in Perth.
English palms it down to McLean. Hurried kick around the corner. Wangani Miller takes the uncontested mark in front of Norton. Now he gives it off to Patton from the centre square. That's going to be a downfield free kick. Patton was put to ground, I think, by Norton. So here is a shot for goal coming up for St Kilda.
I think it was Riley West who just tried to lay some body, obviously trying to, probably may have got a bit of a word from Beveridge at the quarter time break about laying some body on your opponent, and just no need to there, and gives away a soft little down the ground possession with Mick Johnson go back and kick his second.
So Owens will shoot for goal. 40 metres out, slide angle to the left. In he comes for 5 straight goals to the Saints. He's pushed it away to the right for a minor. St Kilda 4-2-26, leading the Dogs, 1 behind, 2 minutes played in this second term on Grandstand AFL.
Saints to the Lockett end in this second quarter, which is to the left of the interchange. The ends sort of look similar, and since the big screens have been around it, we can't clearly see which end is which. I'm just going to have to take my word for it. As Bontempelli marks the kick out, he goes short to Libba. He marks at half back. He goes back to Liam Jones.
Again, just very stagnant, isn't it?
Not a heap on up ahead, and his kick misses Baker. Here comes the pressure. Owens knocks it down to Wood. Short kick along the line, and Caminiti takes the mark. The second gamer. He's about 55 out. He just lays it up to the top of the goal square. Cordy climbs, no mark. Jure had hands on it momentarily. Second attempt, got it out to Bontempelli. Back pocket, hand pass to the back flank for Libba. Shares it out wide with Daniel against the boundary line. His kick cut off. Sinclair wins it back for the Saints. Hand pass to Ross. Hurried ball inside 50. Crozier tried to smother it. Took an unkind bounce. Higgins straightens up to Phillippo for his second. Phillippo hooks it through. And the Saints are smoking. 3 minutes into the second quarter, they've kicked all 5 in the game. 5-2-32. The Western Bulldogs 1 behind, and Phillippo has 2 in the game already. Mark Murphy and Luke Ball.
Just looks like a nice player, doesn't he, Ball? He just smooth move. I love the left footers who just make it look easy, don't they? But the real concern for me is just coming out of D50 there. Liberatorio is probably one of the best users by hand, almost in the competition. Misses an easy target and puts his teammate under pressure, and then a turnover is a result. So they're just not on at the moment, the Bulldogs.
So Phillippo, is it? Cool.
It's Poe.
We're calling him the Pooh. The nickname's the Pooh.
Yeah, just to confuse everybody.
The Scud.
Christian Petrarca, whose nickname's Track, but it's not Petrarca, it's Petrarca. I think it's one of those things.
Got it.
Number 10 draft pick from last season. His father played 3 games for the Dogs. Phillippo. There he is kicking goals for the Saints. Back in the middle. Saints win it through Crouch. Shares it with Wood. Crouch gets it back. They're at centre-half back. Hand passes to Patton. And then flares the kick out wide to the wing. It bounces in front of Phillippo. Taps it down to Burns. Hand passes defensively to Steele. And Battle, in fact, who chips it up towards half-forward. English used the body well and takes the intercepting mark for the Dogs at left half-back.
English. Short kick to Crozier. Dogs only kicked 1 goal, by the way, in the final quarter last week, and then goalless in the first quarter here. As he kicks to a contest involving Darcy, spills to Jamara. He's locked up. Hump says he took too long trying to break the tackles, and free kick for St Kilda.
They're sticking. The tackles are sticking tonight. The Saints, such an impressive start.
Battle short to Ben Patton. Marks defensive side of the wing. The Saints with a shutout so far, and the only 5 goals of the game. Short to Sinclair. Short kick to Burns. City wing. Used to wear number 31, by the way, Ryan Burns. Now wears number 13, so just flipped them around. Made it easy for the property steward. It's a long kick down to half forward. A climb from Liam Jones. No mark. Pack forms at his feet. Liberatore's got it. Somehow wrestles it out of there for the Bulldogs. Comes out the back door to English. Gives it to Daniel under the pump. He's tackled by Steele, and we've got another stoppage, which Ross Lyon will be loving. His Saints right on. Ball up here, 60 out from the Saints goal, right half forward.
Saints up by 31. English takes it out of the ruck. It spills the Saints' way to Burns, to Marshall, who just dribbles it forward, picked up by Crozier. And it spills to Daniel. His hand pass out wide to English. Had a fumble. Phillippo's in there. He missed it. Crouch picks it up. He's turned it over to Daniel. From left half back, chips it forward and finds Scott, who's marked at left half back for the Dogs. And he chips it backwards inside defensive 50 to Keith. Thought about switching play, then decides to try and chip short to Jones, the centre half back. It was knocked away from him. He picks it up and gives it to Liberatore, who's stripped of it. Just got the hand pass out to Bontempelli. Now to Dale from inside the centre square. He kicks it out wide. West in a one-on-one. Takes out Patton. And it is a free kick the Saints' way.
Just can't get any free-flowing ball at all, the Bulldogs at the moment. The Saints, just from that last turnover, just worked back so well and clogged up the space, forced Western Bulldogs to go back and around, and just that referred pressure is still weighing on them. They're still missing these easy kicks and handballs.
Well, yeah, they've got to find a way to get it into the hands, or out of the hands of Alex Keith and Liam Jones coming out of the back 50.
Patton went short to Wood. He turns it over by foot. Giray back the other way for the Bulldogs. Kicks to Jamara in a 2-on-1. No mark. Howard runs out of room, and Jamara tackles him after he's out of play, and that's on the AstroTurf, the hard stuff. Everybody's okay, and a boundary throw in. 50 out from the Dogs goal. Jan off the SMS 0437 774 774. Please keep giving me lots of North scores. Boundary throwing. Steele, hand pass out to Crouch, close to the boundary line. Steele trying to soccer it on. Ends up back with Daniel and back in amongst a number of bodies. Somehow McLean passing through traffic. Got it out to Smith. Bulldogs have it 60 out. Gives it to Giray by hand. Kicks to the hot spot. Darcy reaching for it, but it falls the way of Garcia. Quick hands to McLean. McLean's hand pass back into the pack. Just rattles around like a pinball, and eventually a hurried kick out of there ends up with Daniel. Bangs it goalward, but misses near side or behind. Just the Dogs' second score of the night. 5-2 to 2 behind. Saints by 30. Now the game in Perth, it is quarter time. Fremantle 2-3, North Melbourne 4-1. So the Roos by 10 points. Jen, if you've got a smartphone, you've got a call of that game through the ABC Listen app. Just fire it up, search AFL in the magnifying glass and click on ABC AFL Extra, and you'll be able to get a full call of North Melbourne and Freo.
Saints work it to Higgins, defensive side of the City wing. He sends it down the line. It's marked by Burns. Dishes it off to Hill, chips it forward, lands at the feet of Caminiti, picked up by McLean of the Dogs, gives it to Bailey Smith inside the defensive 50, flares it out to the broadcast wing, and it's picked up by Battle, who hand passes inboard to Wood. That's a high up and under kick towards half forward, and a great mark taken by Phillippo, who's quick to dish it off to Steele, chips it inside forward 50, Higgins in space. He's marked 45 out from goal, 45-degree angle to the left.
That's the ball use, isn't it, Bally, that they've been crying out for in this first quarter and a bit. Just get in the hands of Jack Steele, who just weighs up the options, and the Bulldogs players have flooded back and little Higgins pops up in a little bit of space and nails him.
It's a decision to play on, isn't it? Straight away. A couple of times in that passage of play.
It's good to
Players
see,
on the
isn't it?
ground, getting the handball out to keep the play moving.
Higgins is missed to the left for a minor. Saints extend their lead 5-3-33 to the Western Bulldogs, 2 behind, 31 points the margin, 9 minutes into the second quarter.
What to like about Mateus. Nice mark, handball off his backside, a couple of goals already.
Just shows you that a young kid playing on instinct and seeing what's there and just giving it straight away, which is great to see.
Here's Doc Duray now to the defensive goal square, kicks wide, close to the boundary line, and Howard's happy to swap that out of bounds. Throwing 70 out from the Saints goal. St Kilda by 31, 5-3 to 2 behinds. Over in Perth, it's quarter time. It's Freo trailing by 10. North Melbourne 4-2 there. From the restart, Marshall wins it down through the legs of McLean. Dogs still win it to Garcia under the pump though, gives it back to Toby McLean. His handball back into dispute. Clark had it, lost it, hands it straight to Bailey Smith, who kicks hurriedly down the wing.
McRae in a one-on-one against Patton, almost reels in the mark. He's spilled it, picked up by Stocker, who spears a pass to centre half forward, knocked away from Gresham by Duray, picked up by Bontempelli of the Dogs. With composure, kicks out to the city side wing, bounces in front of Scott. Close against the boundary line, kicks long down the line, Richards and Wilkie. Wilkie in front position, knocked away from him, picked up by Battle, hands it off to Patton. His right foot snap around the corner down the wing, bounces in front of Higgins. The umpire says, ball it in on the outer wing. Saints by 31, 10 minutes played second term.
The Saints just defending so well. Liam Stocker goes for a pretty difficult kick through the corridor and turns it over, but still the Bulldogs couldn't quite capitalise on it. The Saints defenders were right up the backside of their opponents and there was no space whatsoever.
Mark Murphy on grandstand AFL from the boundary throw-in. It's a little shallow. Burns in the end knocks it down to Steele of the Saints, or in fact Crouch, who gives it to Steele, who turns and kicks down to half forward. Ugly looking kick. Scott just pushes it out wide to Bailey Smith's advantage. There's a free kick. St Kilda player was legged. Scott falling across the lower limbs of Jade Gresham and gives away a free kick in the process. Gresham came in to compete. Scott was falling to ground, just trying to knock it to Smith's advantage, and the ump said, you can't do that in a dangerous manner, and Gresham will get the free for St Kilda. Goes short to Clark. They're headed inside 50 again. Caminiti the target. Fist comes at the back. Williams collects, and straight away the heavy tackle. It's Mitch Owens who locks him up. 20 metres out from the St Kilda goal at the locket end. Saints by 31 points. The Dogs goalless 12 minutes into the second.
English against Cordy off the tap. Butler couldn't gather it, picked up by Clark. Tried to get boot to ball, couldn't do so, and holding the ball is the call. Free kick to the Western Bulldogs. A little harsh, maybe?
A little harsh, but just didn't dispose of it correctly, so fair enough.
Bronched here too. Free kick count 11-2 St Kilda's way, or in fact 11-3 now.
Well, that's what happens when you get in first, win the ball, and then out tackle.
Bailey Smith reels in a nice mark against Crouch at left half back.
Just had a good 5 minutes, Smith. Just trying to get his team going with some run.
10 disposals for him so far. Loads up, thumps it long down the line. Norton has a few to beat. Was he infringed? Yes. Free kick.
Cheer again from the Dogs fans. On with your ball. It's not always the best indicator just to look at where the free kicks are going as to how the game's been umpired. We've very rarely looked at the umpiring so far tonight through a quarter and a half as Norton kicks across the ground for the Dogs to English. He cooks it. Too much on the kick to Duray. Higgins the intercept. Hand pass out in front of Cordy. Takes on English. Hand pass to Owens. Feeds it up to halfway for Higgins. Kicks into an open forward 50. Hill and Bruce. Hill one out in the cage. Got hands to it. No mark. Hurried handball. Back in front of Owens. Collects onto the left peg. Shoots goalward but misses near side.
Did well, Bruce, didn't he?
Did very well.
It's not a great position for any defender to find themselves in.
Especially when you've got Bradley Hill running straight towards goal and it's out the back. It was lucky the kick wasn't quite perfect, but well done.
5-4 to 2 behind. Saints by 32 points. 14 minutes into the second. Karen Peterson on the boundary.
I'll let you go, Corby.
Bruce almost turned it over, but hand passes to Crozier, chip short to Bontempelli. Bontempelli, who's marked at centre half back, and kick short to McRae. Then releases Bontempelli by hand, who kicks out wide to English, who's marked on the wing. Hand passes to Daniel. He chips it forward to Liberatore. Now loops the hand pass over the top to Baker at left half forward for the Dogs. Shoots it inside forward 50 and Scott's marked. 40 out from goal, slight angle to the left. Let's get down to Karen Peterson on the boundary.
Just an observation at ground level, guys. The St Kilda bench is full of activity. There's conversations, phones being passed, Seb Ross doing a lot of coaching from the boundary. Opposite bench is very quiet, a lot of shoulder slumps, so body language not particularly great from the Dogs on the bench at the moment.
So Anthony Scott, this for the Western Bulldogs' first goal of the night. He lets it go from 40 out, slams it into the post. St Kilda 5-4-34, Western Bulldogs 3 behinds, 15 played second term on Grandstand AFL.
Oh, much better ball in the day. That's what they have to do now. Just overlap. Didn't even think about it. Overlap, handball, kick mark. Gave them an opportunity inside 50. Just haven't seen that at all.
Stocker on the kick out, goes long to half back. Marshall flies for it, no mark, spills front and centre. McRae hit him in the head, and then regathers. Hand pass away to English, to Dale, little spin move. Hand pass to Crozier, gives it to Richards at half forward, kicks inside 50, Jamara. And the number 1 pick from a couple of years ago, Ugle-Hagen's got it, 40 out directly in front.
Well, the difference was they were clean around the footy. His first gives a little bit of dance and carry on from little Bale. I love that little ball, and Ugle-Hagen, if you put it out in front of him, he's just got so much talent and athleticism in the football.
They need one to get him going. Jamara Ugle-Hagen skips in. This is not going to be that. He's put it out on the full. Barely struck it. No change to that score. St Kilda by 51 points. The Dogs goalless 16 minutes into the second quarter. Meanwhile, start of the second term over in Perth. It's North Melbourne by 17 over Freo.
Wanganeen Miller from the back pocket. Shoots it out wide to Crouch, who's marked at right half back. Saints by 31. 16 played second term. Crouch kicks it into the corridor. Patton's marked on the edge of the centre square. Wants to switch play to the broadcast wing. It's going to bounce in front of Mason Wood, who collects defensive side of the wing. Loops the hand pass over the top to Stocker in front of the interchange. Gates chips forward just the required distance to Owens, who takes the diving mark as Stocker puts down Garcia. And the umpire says that's okay. Owens thumps it inside 50 to a contest. It's off hands, out of play. Boundary throw in, 45 around from goal. Saints by 31, 16 points played second term.
They can be real deflators, those last 2 shots of goal, can't they, Bally? When you're finally starting to work your way into the game, and then you have 2 shots, one hits a post and then one out in the full.
Still 31 points St Kilda's way. Boundary throw in. Hit the ruckman Owens in the head. Skids through to Ross. Hand pass away to Wanganeen Miller. Gets back onto his right peg. 70 out. Drives it to the hot spot. In from the side. Darcy. Second attempt. Takes it. It's a juggled mark. And the D50 for the Bulldogs. Comes back out to Jamara and a 2-on-1. He keeps his feet and he takes a juggled mark. Looks to the corridor immediately. Dangerous kick. Wanted Garcia. Goes to ground. Eventually it spits out to Bontempelli. It works in the end. Finds Norton. Marks attacking edge of the centre square. Kicks out to the open flank. Back in back. And Baker takes the mark for the Bulldogs. 45-degree angle. 30 from home.
But it was the 2 kids. Great contested mark by Sam Darcy in the back pocket. And then there was risk involved, wasn't it, with Ugle-Hagen's kick. But
good to see him have a go.
Something came off, that's right. If you're going to make a mistake, at least it gave an opportunity to open the game up a bit. And sometimes fortune does favour the brave.
18 minutes into the second quarter. At last, the Dogs have got a major. 1 goal in the final term last week. They've waited almost 2 quarters for their first tonight. They're playing catch-up big time on St Kilda. The Saints 5-4-34, the Dogs 1-3-9. 18 minutes into the second quarter on Grandstand AFL. Luke Ball and Mark Murphy.
Well, that's the method against the Saints, because at the moment the Bulldogs have been playing into their hands by just going straight and slow. They did stuff up the kick, but the rest of the players knew where he wanted to get, and they got numbers there, and then they made something out of nothing. And their good players got their hands on the football, and then it just opens up the other side of the ground and allows that sort of space for your wingers and your forwards to move into. So we'd love to see the Bulldogs just take be a bit more bold, the intensity, go through the corridor and open up the ground.
Back in the middle, Cordy and Darcy and ruck. Free kick to Cordy, advantage paid. Steele sends the Saints inside 50 to full forward. And that was an excellent mark taken by Jones. He's quick to flare it out wide to Williams. Wood close late. Williams takes the mark. Right half back. Plays on. Thumps it down the line to a contest. Darcy and Cordy. It's brought to ground. And picked up by Cordy. His hand pass couldn't find a target. Plenty of numbers around the ball. They all dive on top of it. The umpire circles and says, give it to me. Ball up on the logo. Broadcast wing. St Kilda by 25. As we enter time on into the second.
McComb and Windhager, the two subs. No late change coming in for either team. Saints with the first 5 goals, Dogs with the last. From the ball up, Clark hurried kick forward, but a turnover. Keith takes the intercept mark for the Bulldogs. He goes back to Liam Jones. His father Bob actually played for St Kilda in the late 80s. Goes all the way out to Bruce, who used to play for St Kilda himself. Hand pass away to Geray, City wing. Turns and kicks down to half forward. Higgins, Patton rather, backing back, no mark, spills to McRae of the Bulldogs. Dogs keep it, hand pass to Garcia, he coughs it up. Oh, there's a free kick.
To Garcia,
It's going to go Garcia's way. Got a shove in the back from Hunter Clark as he disposed of the footy. Everyone was a little stunned as to what that was for, but it means that Riley Garcia is going to get a set shot at goal. He's at left half forward, he'll have to kick it all of 50.
Just their 12th inside 50 for the game. The Saints currently almost at 30. They're 29 inside 50s.
Put the bright orange wheels on as he skips over the 50-metre arc. Garcia for 2 in a row. Through it goes. Back-to-back majors for the Dogs. They had to wait 18 minutes into the second quarter for their first, and now they've got a couple in 3 minutes. The Bulldogs move to 2-3-15. St Kilda 5-4-34. Saints by 19 points. Time on second quarter. Grandstand AFL.
Oh, nice finish. And he's not going to get too many opportunities tonight, Riley Garcia, so he's got to make the most of them. He did then. It wasn't a heap in the free kick, was it? But probably technically in the back. But it has been as a result of a change of mindset, really, hasn't it, for this Bulldogs team? It hasn't worked for a quarter and a half. Okay, we're going to have a crack and throw a bit of caution to win and just get some energy on the ball. And sure enough, the game opens up, the ground opens up for them. They're able to transition the ball from one end to the other a lot more efficiently and give their forwards a chance one-on-one.
Margin back to 19, back in the middle. Smith wins the clearance for the Dogs, tumbles a kick inside the arc. At the back, Stocker has a fumble. McRae, hand pass to Norton. There's a whistle on play, high contact. Bulldogs way. Going to McRae. 45 out directly in front.
Well, just threw himself at the contest there and gets rewarded with one which is probably was there.
Yeah, it's Hunter Clark again, actually.
Yep.
That's his second free kick in a row. Again, not a heap in it, but you commit your body a little bit. And look, Jackson McRae's actually been one Bulldog that's done that.
Yes, for 3 in a row. McRae trots in from 48. Sends it on its way. It's offline and is touched on the way through for a minor. Saints 5-4-34. Lead the Western Bulldogs 2-4-16. Margin 18 points, 22 played. Second term on Grandstand AFL.
Healthy crowd Saturday night at Docklands. Two teams aren't the biggest drawing Victorian clubs, but you'd think around 35,000 in for it. Dogs' first home game of the year. Sinclair from the goal square goes long with the kick out up to the wing. Crozier hand pass away to English. He gives it to McLean. Just dumps the kick deep forward. Norton racing back, takes the mark. Battle his direct opponent, slipped at the most inopportune moment. And Norton's got it in front of the behind post. Tight angle left forward pocket.
Well, they're just starting to get their contest right, the Bulldogs, and they're getting their prime movers are getting their hands on the football. And
Norton opens up the angle, snaps. They've now got 3. The Dogs are out and rolling. 3 in the space of 5 minutes, having waited more than a quarter and a half for their first. 3-4-22. The Western Bulldogs, St Kilda out in front, 5-4-34. Time on second term. Saints lead cut to 12, having led by as many as 32 earlier in the quarter.
It's a bit of a cruel game sometimes, boy. They've probably played 6 minutes of football here, the Bulldogs, and credit to them, they've been touched up, but they've responded in this last little period. But to be only 2 goals down now, the Saints will be thinking, geez, we had this game almost wrapped up 10 minutes ago. But the Bulldogs have got so much class with their midfield especially, and forward of the ball too. They've got so much height and ability up there that They don't need so many opportunities to make them count.
Back to a 2-goal margin. St Kilda still with the advantage. The Dogs are coming. Back in the middle, English taps it down to Liberatore. Here's another clearance. It's a high up and under towards the 50. Garcia in front, knocked away from him. The ball travels towards the boundary. McRae keeps it alive. Hand passes inboard to Liberatore, who shares it with Bailey Smith from left half forward. Kicks into the corridor. Ugle-Hagan couldn't complete the mark. Picked up by Stocker, who gives it to Howard, and now to Sinclair, and the Saints are out. Crouch marks at left half back.
Crouch goes short to Butler. Dale gets a fist in there, knocks it out of bounds. Throw in broadcast wing.
I was just thinking the Saints need to really just get some hands on the footy, a bit of composure then. They couldn't even get 2 marks in a row. It was well done by Ballydale to force the error and get a stoppage on the centre wing.
Halfway through the second quarter in Perth, North still by 16 points over the Dockers. Boundary throwing. The Dogs a bit of momentum here. Bontempelli takes on a few. In the end, he's taken high in the wood tackle. The Bont by hand releases Richards across the centre square. Hand pass to Dale. Kicks off a step to the top of the goal square. The astronaut flies. No mark. Spills front and centre for Jamara. Trying to get back onto his left peg. It opens up for him. He shoots goalward but misses near side. Edging closer, having put one out on the full earlier in the term. St Kilda by 11 points. The Dogs with the momentum, having kicked the last 3. Approaching half-time at Docklands.
Howard, chip short to Wood, who's marked still inside defensive 50. Elects to kick long, but he might have turned it over. He has. West takes the intercepting mark on the wing, broadcast side. Has Smith short and goes to him. It's a good kick. Smith's got it 55 from home at right half forward. Pretty crowded forward 50.
Dale's working here.
Dale's inside, but Smith kicks into the pocket. English got a hand to it and then dives on top of it. We've got a ball up in the right forward pocket. Saints by 11, 26 played, second term.
Up it goes. Right forward pocket for the Dogs. Marshall wins the hit out down to Ross. Hurried kick out to halfback. Clean bowls a couple. Dale first one there. 70 out from the Dogs goal. Hand pass back to the wing. Here's Giray. Surges the kick deep forward again. Across the front of the pack. The Bont. No mark. Out the back door. Garcia scrapping for it. Umpire says play on and eventually says ball up. 15 out from the Dogs goal. St Kilda by 11. 27 gone. Second turn.
Norton against Marshall in ruck. Coming through McLean. Couldn't take the footy with him. Smith laying a tackle and we'll do it all again.
It's got more zip about them, haven't they? The Dogs, they've got a bit of a sniff, obviously. Lead's gone out of their boots.
3 in a row after the Saints kicked the first 5. Smith, his hand pass couldn't find McLean. Goes out of bounds. 40 around from the Dogs goal.
Well, the midfielders have really just stood up. The Bulldogs. Smith's getting a lot of the football. Liberatore, Bontempelli, McRae.
Saints have parked the bus here, haven't they? For this half. Everyone in their back 50.
Ball flicked back into play. Ugle-Hagan against Marshall. Liberatore is going nowhere. He's wrapped up by Crouch, and we've got a ball up. 45 out from the Dogs goal. We go again.
80% of the players on the ground in this front 50 for the Dogs. Marshall grabs it out. Barakji kicks to half back. Higgins just ironed out Dale. Went straight through his chest and free kick for Bailey Dale. 60 out for the Dogs. It's coming back inside that congested forward 50 at the Coventry end. Dale just lays it up in the hot spot. They come from all directions. Spills down to Scott and Ross, and they both see it out of play. A throw in next to the behind post. Dogs with the last 3 in the game. 14 ticks left on the clock before half-time. Saints by 11 from the throw-in. English trying to grab it out of the right. Gee, was he tackled by Marshall? He was. Marshall grabbed the jumper. English hit the deck. And the ump caught what he sold. A free kick for Tim English. 45-degree angle, 20 out.
Well, it's been a pretty bad or disappointing. Look at Ross in the coach's box for the Saints. I think they've given away they've been a bit soft, haven't they? But they've given away about 5 free kicks in this last 5 minutes that are going to result in direct shots at goal, the Saints. So A little bit of bad luck, a little bit of ill-discipline, probably a bit of fatigue just before half-time.
Tim English with the last kick of the half. After the siren, slots it. There's less than a kick in it, despite the Saints' early dominance. And there's a Barney after the half-time siren. As every single player on the ground rushes to grab a little bit of jumper. The two teams come together and the umpires doing their best now to try and separate the two teams. The cash register going up at AFL House for a few fines. St Kilda by just 5 points at halftime. They kicked the first 5 goals of the game. It took the Bulldogs until the 19-minute mark of the second quarter to kick their first. And before halftime, they end up with 4. 4-5-29 the Bulldogs. St Kilda 5-4-34. Saints by 5 points. They've led from the jump. The goal kickers, Mateus Filippo has a couple, and then singles for Gresham, Steele and Owens. While for the Western Bulldogs, 1 each for Baker, Norton and Garcia. And of course, the fourth is Tim English, who does so after the halftime siren. Meanwhile, over in Perth, we've just ticked into time on in the second quarter. It's still North Melbourne by 16 over Fremantle. Nat Pfeiffer laid out for the Dockers. North 5-2-32, Fremantle 2-4-16. Earlier today in the twilight, it was Richmond by 32 points. Feels like it doesn't really tell the story of the game. Adelaide got within a point in the last quarter. The Tigers flexed again to pull away. A 32-point win for the Tigers. An injury for Jacob Hopper. And a looming suspension for Nathan Broad after his heavy tackle on Paddy Parnell early in the piece. And much earlier today, in the afternoon fixture, Collingwood in front of 60,000 beat Port Adelaide by 71 points to make it 2-0. They look like the hottest team in football. All of a sudden, it's game on here. Mark Murphy and Luke Ball at St Kilda by 5 points at halftime.
It certainly is, and momentum going into halftime is right with the Bulldogs. They kicked the last 4 of the game. They had the last 8 or 9 inside 50s. It just looked like it was St Kilda's night, really. The Bulldogs hadn't turned up whatsoever, but it was to full credit to the Western Bulldogs midfielders. They really got going in that back sort of 15 minutes of that quarter, and it was Bontempelli, McRae, Liberatore, Smith, all their prime movers really getting on top. English in the ruck was really handy too. So that last free kick too it's a real deflator for the Saints going in to half time, because they'll no doubt be stewing on that. They played a terrific brand of football for majority of that first half, but they only go in 5 points up at half time. But that's the beauty of Ross Lyon. There's no doubt he'll no doubt be angry, bally and frustrated by the way in which their side was led up that 5-goal lead. But it's about regrouping, going, right, boys, they're always going to come at some point, the Bulldogs. And it's about now getting back to what made us really good in that first half. And that was their hunt and pressure around the football and their smart ball use around the ground. Their use inside 50 was a bit lacking the Saints. The Bulldogs probably showed them in that last 10 minutes how to use the ball going inside 50 and really made them pay.
Yeah, good call, man. Really, it was work rate, wasn't it? It was a bit of a change of mindset and work rate, and it was driven by those leaders that you said. I think that last 10 minutes, Liberatore, Smith in particular, Bontempelli really got going and led the way in terms of, okay, boys, this isn't working for us. We're flat, we're slow, we're playing into the Saints' hands, we're inviting their pressure. Let's take the game on a bit. Let's take a few risks. And actually, Ugle Hagen was another one, a young player who embodied that as well.
That was probably the one that got him going, wasn't it?
It really did, didn't it? Yeah, it took a risk and it almost didn't come off. Yeah. And it could have gone back the other way. But sometimes that's what you have to do. And again, the best sides that we're seeing over this first couple of weeks, I mentioned Collingwood earlier, they take those risks and they're predictable with it.
Yep.
So they know that they're going there and they get numbers there. They commit numbers there and it's a work rate thing again. And that's what they were able to do in that last 10 minutes of that quarter. Got a bit of luck with some free kicks, but again, that can happen if you're presenting, you're working hard, and you're giving yourself in the right position. So they were good enough to capitalise on that. And you're right, the Saints will be disappointed because they couldn't have played, or they couldn't have had the game more on their terms in that first quarter and a half. Probably, definitely a reflection of the talent forward of the ball. I think, the lack of Max King, obviously, and we know that young Caminiti, who we like the look of, he certainly showed a bit, didn't he? But
and Mitch Owens, they showed a bit.
Exactly. So a bit of a patchwork sort of forward line at the moment. We weren't able to capitalise on those. I think it was 17 inside 50s in the first quarter. And just left the door ajar for when the Dogs were able to snap out of their slumber a bit and get moving. Like you said, they're always going to do that. So, I mean, we've got a contest, haven't we? We've got it hasn't been the prettiest game, hasn't been free-flowing and and super exciting in terms of offence, but we've got a contest, and in a way, that's how the Saints like it. We saw them grind the Dockers into the ground last week. They'll need a reset again. They probably did look a bit fatigued in that last 5 minutes of that quarter, and their effort would say that they were entitled to do that. But they can take a deep breath now, and the message needs to be the same. Keep that pressure up, boys. Keep forcing those turnovers in our front half, giving ourselves an opportunity to score, and hopefully we can find a way to score in this second half. But that sort of looked a bit ominous in that the last 10 minutes of that quarter from the Dogs.
I don't know whether half-time came at a good time or not for St Kilda, whether it was came 10 minutes too late or whether it's come just at the right time for them. The Dogs with a surge there, time on in that second quarter. They kicked the last 4 goals of the match. St Kilda 5-4-34, the Western Bulldogs 4-5-29. The Saints by 5 points at half-time. The thoughts there of Luke Ball and Mark Murphy. Jess Webster with me calling the footy, and Karen Peterson, All-Australian AFLW defender, with us on the boundary. Meanwhile, over in Perth, we're approaching half-time. North Melbourne 5-2-32 lead Fremantle 3-6-24, an 8-point lead for North Melbourne. If you want to listen to that game in full, check out the ABC Listen app, streaming the AFL for the first time in 2023. Magnifying glass in the bottom right-hand corner if you want to search something. It's the easiest way to find it. Just search AFL, and the first thing that'll bob up is ABC AFL Stream 1, and then there's a stream for ABC AFL Extra, and that's where you'll find the game between Fremantle and North Melbourne. Second half action isn't far away here at Docklands. The Saints by 5 points. In the interim, let's see what's happening at the ABC newsroom.
ABC News with David Rowlands. The ABC's election analyst Anthony Green is projecting that Labor will be able to form government in New South Wales, but he says it's not clear whether it will be in minority or majority. Jessica Kidd has more.
It's still early in the count, but there appears to have been a 6.5% swing towards Labor. The ABC's election analyst Anthony Green says the figures are looking good for Labor and concerning for the Liberal Party, but is stopped short of declaring a firm result at this stage. Around 1.5 million people have chosen to vote early at this election, and more than 120,000 postal votes have been returned. Meanwhile, counting in Bathurst in the state's central west has been delayed after a massive storm cut power at the early voting centre.
The Labor candidate for the seat of Parramatta in Sydney's west, Donna Davis, is leading the race against her Liberal opponent. Retiring Liberal MP Jeff Lee, who held the seat with a margin of 6.5%, says it's a difficult battle.
As the pendulum swings a different way, it'll be tough for us. I've been in Parliament now for 12 years. It's hard to transfer that personal following to our candidate, Katie Mullins, who's a fantastic candidate. She wasn't put in the field till fairly late in the piece, and we've had against her a mayor that's been campaigning using that mayoralty position for the last 2 years. So it's going to be a tough fight tonight.
Meantime, Labor supporters are nervously watching the New South Wales election count at the party's main function in Sydney South. State political reporter Cameron Gock is there.
There's a sense of cautious optimism at Labor headquarters as early results start coming through. Labor leader Chris Minns spent the day in marginal southwestern Sydney seats like East Hills, which the Liberals hold on just 0.1%. He then cast his vote in his own seat of Cogra, which also sits on a razor-thin margin. Labor needs to win 9 seats to form a majority and have only claimed government from opposition twice since World War II. Meanwhile, the Liberals and Nationals are hoping to win a historic 4th term in government. Polling suggests there is a real possibility neither party can form a majority and will need to rely on crossbench support to form minority government.
There have been major disruptions to trains in Sydney's west, with commuters left stranded this evening. Reporter Nabil Al-Nashar has more from Parramatta Station.
Due to major delays, there are no trains coming in or out of the station. Only 2 trains managed to pass through. On the platform across from me over there were hundreds of commuters stranded for at least 30 minutes trying to catch a train to the city. We're still stranded on this platform trying to catch a train to Penrith. Now, this is one of the major issues that are definitely on the minds of voters as they're going to the voting booths to cast their votes. Transportation. There's huge pressure on whoever's going to form the next government to deliver cheap and reliable public transport, reliable being the key word here.
The Victorian opposition has accused the Andrews government of wasting money on major projects when it could be better spent on helping the community. Premier Daniel Andrews has warned that the coming budget will be challenging because repeated increases in interest rates have added millions of dollars to Victoria's repayments for major projects. Shadow Treasurer Brad Rouswell has said that money should be used on frontline services.
Every dollar wasted on a major project is a dollar not invested in the things that matter for Victorians, into frontline services, into nurses in hospitals, into teachers in classrooms, into police working the beat and keeping Victorians safe.
A government spokesperson says election commitments will be honoured and key services will be maintained. Thousands of protesters have rallied in Darwin in response to the stabbing death of young bottle shop worker Declan Laverty. Matt Garrick reports.
Protesters turned out in their droves in the forecourt of Darwin's Parliament House this morning, calling for immediate action to halt rising levels of crime in the region. Organiser Kobe Campbell gave an impassioned speech calling for the government to implement Declan's law, new legislation to be tougher on crime. Those in attendance also chanted "Enough is enough" and called for the Chief Minister to be sacked. The 20-year-old was killed last week while working at a Darwin bottle shop. A 19-year-old man has been charged with his murder.
The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights says the death toll of militants from US airstrikes on pro-Iranian installations in eastern Syria has risen to 19. The War Monitor says that was from the initial American response to a drone attack on Thursday on a US military position in Syria that killed one American contractor and wounded another 5 troops. There's no independent verification yet of the toll. And just recapping our top story, that the ABC projects that the Labor Party will form government in New South Wales.
Simone Young is one of the most talented conductors of her generation.
When I started, I faced considerable opposition.
Executive producer Kate Blanchett takes us into the world of one of our greatest conductors.
In 1991, there were no women conductors.
What does being a woman have to do with conducting?
She's not afraid to just be a boss.
Simone Young.
She was born to be a conductor.
Knowing the Score.
It is magic.
Streaming now on ABC iView.
Hello, I'm Patrick Stack, and if you like great stories and you enjoy sport, then I reckon you need ABC Sport Daily in your life.
Do you want the good news or the bad news first, Patrick?
I dare say, like the words in the song, I think the tears will flow like rashes at ANZ Stadium on Saturday night.
Ross Lyon is the kind of coach that he will absolutely wring the last drip of water out of any kind of damp clot.
He is the golden calf of Australian cricket.
It's a daily sports conversation, and it's called ABC Sport Daily. Find us on the ABC Listen app.
Grandstand AFL.
Now streaming every match on the ABC Listen app.
Look for the AFL button.
Back pocket, hand pass to the back flank for Libba. Shares it out wide with Daniel against the boundary line. His kick cut off. Sinclair wins it back for the Saints. Hand pass to Ross. Hurried ball inside 50. Crozier tried to smother it. Took an unkind bounce. Higgins straightens up to Filippo for his second. Filippo hooks it through. And the Saints are smoking. Marks attacking edge of the centre square. Kicks out to the open flank. Backing back, and Baker takes the mark for the Bulldogs. 45-degree angle, 30 from home. 18 minutes into the second quarter. At last, the Dogs have got a major. Spills to McRae, the Bulldogs. Dogs keep it. Hand pass to Garcia. He pops it up. Oh, there's a free kick. It's going to go Garcia's way. Bright orange wheels on as he skips over the 50-metre arc. Garcia for 2 in a row. Through it goes to English. He gives it to McLean. Just dumps the kick dead forward. Norton racing back, takes the mark. Norton opens up the angle, snaps. They've now got 3. The Dogs are out and rolling. Tim English for the last kick of the half. After the siren, slots it. There's less than a kick in it, despite the Saints' early dominance.
The 2023 AFL season.
On radio,
ABC Sport Digital.
And now streaming on the ABC Listen app.
Saints, the first 5 goals of the game. The Dogs were goalless until the 18-minute mark of that second quarter, and then they've kicked the last 4 of the contest. So a game of runs so far here at Docklands on Saturday night. Corbin Middlemass, Jess Webster, Karen Peterson on the boundary, and our grandstand AFL experts Mark Murphy and Luke Ball. St Kilda 5-4-34, the Western Bulldogs 4-5-29. It is half-time over in Perth, and North Melbourne have led from the outset here. 5-2-32, Fremantle 3-6-24, so an 8-point advantage for North Melbourne at half-time. They kicked the first 4 goals of the match over in Perth. Now, the two games earlier today, Bally, you were at the MCG. Collingwood did a complete job on Port Adelaide. They kicked 9 goals in a row at one point either side of quarter time. 71 points in the finish. Complete demolition of Port Adelaide. What did you see at the G today?
Well, and it's really clear, and you compare it to what we're seeing tonight, and it looks like what's happening over in Perth as well. The teams that are prepared to take a risk, are bold with their ball movement, prepared to risk being scored against at times, but are predictable to themselves, Murph, which Collingwood have got themselves. And they've obviously trained it over the off-season. We saw it last year, and they've just improved it again this year. Are scoring heavily, and opening other teams up and having success. So I don't know what this Bulldogs team, we saw signs of it in that last 10 minutes, but I mean, that's the blueprint. Carlton was another great example on Thursday night, off the back of their performance the week before, where they were a bit too stagnant, chip mark, go sideways, backwards. You've got to go. You've got to test. I mean, most teams' team defence these days are all pretty similar, and if you give them time to set up, they're all going to be pretty good at stopping you from moving the ball. So you've got to, if you turn them, you've got to go. You've got to go before they've had that chance to set up. As I said, not always going to work. At times, I mean, we spoke about the Ugle-Hagen example. At times, it's going to look risky and it's going to look like you're potentially going to get scored against. But if it's predictable and if you work hard enough, your teammates know it's going there and they're going to work over to compete if the ball gets spoiled, I guess, and you're there in numbers, usually it's going to result in something positive happening for your team. So that's the takeout from my call over the last couple of weeks, or the first 2 rounds of the season. The teams that are doing that, prepared to be bold with their ball movement, are getting results.
Which is great for footy.
Great for footy,
isn't it?
So much better to watch.
We all go to the football wanting to see high scoring, the goals, the bit of candy, like a bit of excitement. So it's great that the best teams in the competition at the moment are the ones who are daring and willing to take a risk and moving the ball through the corridor and just throwing caution to the wind.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about this game now. Aaron Norton's the best forward on the field by a fair bit. So can we try and get it down to him with some sort of speed and give him a one-on-one? And every time we did, then he either marked it or he got a free kick, didn't he? So that has to be the message at this break, at this halftime break. Now, some of it's personnel. I said at one stage there it was in consecutive defensive D50 rebounds. It was Jones and then it was Keith. Now, they're not the guys you really want maybe taking that kit. But if it's Richards, if it's Bailey Dale, Caleb Daniel, they're the ones. Let's get the ball in those guys' hands and let's see if we can make some things happen.
Just some numbers on all of that, what you're talking about, Bally. So in round 1, we had a record number of inside 50s across the competition. So the average was 55.7 for the round, which last year, for example, was 54.5. So it went higher than that. For week 1, average inside 50s. The defensive 50 to inside 50 transition is up by 5%. And the scores from the back half are up by 7% from last year. So early positive signs on the style of play that was we saw across the competition in week 1. The newsy element out of today is the tackle, which last week was the bump. Feels like today's going to be the slam tackle. We saw one from Burton on Jamie Elliott, resulted in a free kick and a goal. Elliott thankfully bounced straight up. Similar tackle in Adelaide, very different outcome, Murph, where Nathan Broad had a slam tackle on Paddy Parnell and the second-year Crower's result was concussed. Feels like Nathan Broad is probably going to feel the wrath of the MRO here on the back of that.
Yeah, it's the two actions, isn't it? Like it's the tackle and then it's the really driving to ground, which is the one which, if a player gets concussed, you're in trouble as the tackler. So it's a hard one, but we want to try and stamp out head knocks in the game, and they made a point of doing that last week, as you said, Corby, with the bump. But it's the tackle which the player's trying to stand up in the tackle, and the tackler drives the player to ground, and it's not a great look for the game, and you don't want to see players injure their head, especially because we all understand what happens later on in life with some players who put their body and their head on the line. So we've got to look after those players, and the way in which you stop that action is by, unfortunately, suspending players who do it, and then the players understand going forward that they can't those two actions of slinging players, it's a no-go.
And they know. There's on average 120 tackles in a game, isn't there? Players know. There's a duty of care. Those two players today breached their duty of care and will be punished at the tribunal.
Richmond won that game by 32 points over the Crows, despite Adelaide getting within a point in the final term. The Saturday Nighter is still live. The Western Bulldogs trail by 5 points. It's the Saints who lead it. Second half action underway. You're with Jess Webster.
English taps it down to Liberatore and then picked up by Daniel. His hand pass to Sinclair and he's dumped in the tackle by English. Advantage is paid. The Saints move it forward and Filippo marks at centre half forward. 52 out from goal.
Well, yeah, he's going to go back.
He's already got two.
Yeah, he kicks it like a mule. He's got a lovely left foot. Saw him kick a goal like this in the pre-season.
Kicked the opening goal of the game. Added another in the second term, and this to get us underway in the second half in the opening minute. Mateus Filippo, number 10 draft pick from inside the centre square, has given it everything. Wow. This kid is going places. St Kilda open the second half of the major, 6-4-40, leading the Dogs, 4-5-29. Filippo has 3, margin back to 11, and minute played third term on Grandstand AFL.
Well, I loved everything about that last passage of play. Just the sticky hands to take that grab, to go back and be so confident. He knew as soon as he took the grab, he was very confident in his ability to go back from almost 60, really. He's kicked that inside the square.
Yep.
And has got it through without a worry, really. And then the celebration, just to look to the centre wing, was almost like a little Buddy Franklin back against Adelaide in that first final for Hawthorn, where he kicks that goal and celebrates with the crowd. It's a bit of confidence there from the young kid. I love it.
He's kicked the first goal of every quarter tonight. Mateus Filippo, the 18-year-old, the youngest man on the ground. Hurried kick out to the outer wing for St Kilda. Wood got hands to it, no mark. Gresham goes flying through, wrestles with Libba for the footy, and Pack forms on the wing. Says, I'll have it.
It's a good settler for the Saints too, when the Bulldogs have certainly been coming before half-time to kick the first of the third quarter.
Ruck Sherritt from the restart. Crouch had it, lost it, comes out the back door to Clark. Chucks it on the boot. Here's Owens charging back through traffic. Took Dale with him. Somehow got a hand pass out close to the boundary line, City side. Steele knocks it back to Owens. He turns and kicks a high bomb down the wing. They all fly for it. Gee, fair piece of it from Caminiti. Stolen away late by Jones. Hand pass down the wing for the Bulldogs. Wood puts his head over it. Got it out to Clark. Hand pass to Hill.
Hand passes inboard to Marshall. He gives it to Sinclair. Has a bounce. Has a couple of bounces inside the centre square. We'll just pop it inside the arc. Had too much on it for Filippo. Duray out the back for the Dogs. Shares it with Jones. Last line of defence. Chips it to Richards. With his outstretched arms. Takes the mark. Chips it forward. It's not a great kick, but it comes off. Keith collects, sweeping hand pass to Bontempelli from inside the centre square. Norton's out the back and he's marked it. And a little bit to go with it. No 50-metre penalty. Dougal Howard just roughing him up a bit, but that was a well-weighted kick from Bontempelli, and Norton will line up for goal. 30 metres out, pretty much directly in front.
Well, that was the one ball he was speaking about prior to half-time. That Hugo Hagen
just clumsy, was it?
Going for that one through the corridor, and it was a missed kick, but it was through the corridor, and it just opened up the play, and Bontempelli gets the ball through the midfield and
actually copped a boot to the face.
Yeah, it's
on his way
laid
down.
this of the knees.
And the knees across the legs as well.
Matty Burnett.
Norton for the immediate reply, and he's just snuck it home. He's got 2 in the margins, back to 5. St Kilda 6-4-40. Bulldogs 5-5-35, 4 minutes played, third term Grandstand AFL. Luke Ball and Mark Murphy, your experts.
Yeah, again, wasn't a move, just wasn't pretty, but just rolling. Richards it was, rolling and keeping that speed and energy on the ball. Got it to Keith, who used his legs, actually took his space really well, and a lovely handball to put Bontempelli into space. And you know how damaging the Bont can be with his leg. Running back to goal. Beautiful kick, just dropped in Aaron Norton's chest, and he was a little bit clumsy there, Dougal Howard. Needs to be a bit careful. But nice response for the Dogs. 2 goals in 4 minutes this third quarter.
And he brings up his 150th career goal as well.
A goal each to start the third term. 5 minutes old. And that's the lead for St Kilda, 5 points. Marshall wins the hit out in the middle. Steele rolled over in the tackle from Bontempelli. Ball spits out to Wood, and he's tackled.
Caleb Daniel starting in the centre square this third quarter.
Mason Wood 20 and 2 last week against Fremantle, playing off the wing. Marshall wins the tap straight down to Libba, who's locked up. Just repeating that halftime score in Perth. North Melbourne lead Freo by 8. 5-2 to 3-6, so an 8-point lead for North, approaching the start of the third quarter.
Marshall down to Crouch, kick smothered by Bontempelli, picked up by Wood, tackled by Bontempelli, ball spills free. Williams dribbles a kick towards half forward, collected by McRae, who wheels around, 2 kicks from goal, aggressive kick into the corridor. Darcy rises, couldn't complete the mark. Baker taps it intelligently to McLean at centre half forward. Hand passes defensively to Duray. From the point of the square, a long bomb to full forward. Norton in the pack. Can't take the mark, and Battle escorts it over the line for a rushed behind. St Kilda 6-4-40. Western Bulldogs 5-6-36.
I spoke about it at half-time, Bally. They look so much more dangerous with that ball coming into Norton, one-on-one, top of the goal square.
Yeah, you can just see that the skipper too is really injecting himself into the game. His intensity, 3 or 4 big tackles in this quarter.
Sinclair short to Howard, marks the kick out, goes short to Patton. Centre half back for the Saints. St Kilda by 4 points. They've led all night, kicked the first 5 goals, but the Dogs have got 5 of the last 6 in the match. Patton short to Hunter Clark, one of their top 10 picks from a few years back. Kicks out to Cordy. Jones comes across, spoils it away from him and out of bounds. And a throw in between a wing and half forward for St Kilda.
It's been good, hasn't he? He's come back on the ground, Liam Jones.
Has some good intercept marks and just his closing speed. It's what he's been known for over the past probably 5 or 6 years, and it's a welcome addition, no doubt, for the Bulldogs defenders.
Ball back into play, English in front position, palms it down to Garcia. Hand pass just didn't hit McLean. Picked up by Sinclair, kick smothered, picked up by Garcia of the Dogs. Shares it with Bailey Dale inside the centre square, gets around Higgins. Beautiful kick to half forward, finds Ugle Hagan, 2 kicks from goal. Norton offers the lead into the pocket, got him. Norton marks, 45 out, 10 metres in from the boundary.
Was again, Bally, just the quick ball movement and just allows Norton to go to work, and one-on-one he's so hard to stop, isn't he?
Beautiful kick, Bailey Dale. Just changing angles, changing direction, not allowing the Saints defenders to queue up down the line. Nice bit of play from Garcia out of the stoppage too.
The Saints led by as much as 32 points in the second term. Norton shoots towards goal. Just misses, but they're edging closer. Margin 3 points. St Kilda 6-4-40. The Dogs 5-7-37. 7.5 played third term here on Grandstand AFL.
He's got some good pace, doesn't he, Riley Garcia? I've really enjoyed some of his little efforts tonight. He's kicked the 1 goal, but just he's buzzing around and using his legs.
One of the 4 inclusions from last week, Garcia. Here's Wangadeen Miller up, and the kick out hits up Wood. Marks at half back. Just 3 points, St Kilda's lead, led by 32 in the second quarter. We're now 8 minutes into the third. Wood the lefty off the back flank. This kicks to a contest on the wing. English reaching over the top. No mark. Spills down to Marshall. Hand pass sets up Higgins. Just moves it forward to Hill. Gives a handball to the run of Butler, who breaks 2 tackles. Then looks a hand pass to Higgins. Gives it back to the Premiership Tiger. Kicks back inboard. Turns it over. McRae. Hand pass away to Keith off the back flank for the Dogs. Hurried handball to Liberatore. Tried to get it back to Keith. Eventually comes through to Bontempelli. He links up with Crozier and continues to shift across the ground.
Flares it out wide to Richards. And Burns sees it over the line for a throw-in. Right in front of us here in the commentary box on Grandstand AFL. St Kilda by 3, 9 minutes played in the third term. Saints with the first 5. The Dogs have hit back to be within touching distance of the lead. English rips it out of the ruck, bombs it towards half forward. Ugle Hagan in the pack, couldn't come down with it. Wilkie soccers it off the ground into the centre of the Dockland Stadium, picked up by Owens. And now Crouch, low ball inside 50. Beautiful kick. And Cordy will line up for a shot on goal, 40 out.
Oh, well done, Brad Crouch. Got the ball handballed over the top to him and just took an extra half a second just to weigh up his options and just waited for the forward to come at the leg and just popped it out in front for an easy mark inside 50.
Zane Cordy, 45-degree angle to the right. Crozier stands the mark, lets it fly, and it's on target. Saints with some breathing room. 7-4-46, the Dogs, 5-7-37. Margin back out to 9. 10 minutes played, third term, Grandstand AFL.
It's a bonus goal, isn't it, from Zane Cordy. Interesting. You'd think that they recruited him across as a defender, perhaps, but we've seen over the years he's had the ability to play at both ends of the ground, and even as that sort of defensive forward in a sense to keep a defender busy. But that time, nice bit of forward craft, just coming back to the ball, and as you said, nice kick from Brad Crouch. Steadier, really. It just felt like the Bulldogs were on top a little bit in the last 5 or 6 minutes. It was Wilkie across half-back who created the turnover as well. So nice, steadier.
Probably not a bad one to have Zane down there at the moment, just to provide an option and try and bring the ball to ground. It's been an area tonight where the Bulldogs have certainly won in the air, so to have him get a mark inside 50 there and kick a goal is a real bonus.
No King, no Membry, of course, in the St Kilda team at the moment, both out injured. They win it at the coalface here. Marshall, hand pass to Wood, kicks hurriedly inside forward 50, bounces the way of Caminiti, whistle on the play, free kick, Dogs. At half back, and Dan Butler can't believe it. A little tug of the jumper and all of that, and Richards will get the free kick. Goes short to Bruce, short kick on the 45 to Bailey Smith. Emerging superstar of the game. And this man is the flowing blonde mullet, and he plays on. Kicks down the city wing for the Bulldogs to another mullet. Not quite as blonde, and Sinclair takes the intercept mark for St Kilda across the half-back flank.
Just as free-flowing. Sinclair kicks out wide to Patton, who's marked defensive side of the wing. Hand pass off to Wood. Kicks up towards half forward. Jones read it best and takes the intercepting mark at right half back.
Another key defender who backs himself to mark it.
Dangerous kick backwards inside defensive 50, but found Richards, who continues the switch to Keith, who's marked at left half back. Kicks long down the wing. It's just got too much on it, out of bounds on the full. And free kick to Wilkie in front of the interchange gates.
Wilkie goes short to Stocker. Sinclair's mullet, by the way, gets lighter the longer it goes. Is that sort of tipped on the end? Has he had a little bit of work on that? Not sure.
It's got a balayage.
Yeah, it looks quite blonde down the end. It's a short kick here to Ross, who goes along to the hot spot. They come from all directions. Here's Philippo looking for his fourth. Couldn't get his leg free. Kick smothered. Pack forms behind him. Ump says, I'll have it. Mateus has kicked the first goal of all 3 quarters so far. We're 13 minutes into the third. St Kilda by 9 points. Ball up. 15 out from the Saints goal. Swatted down. Bontempelli. Little fumble. Owen sweating on him. Got a handball out in the back pocket. Keith hurriedly kicks out of the defensive arc. Jamara knocks it down for the Bulldogs. Garcia hand pass back to the bootlaces to Jamara. Spills to Wilkie. Tackled by Garcia. Taken the ground. The Dogs fans are happy with that. The game gone up a notch. St Kilda by 9 points. 13 played in the third term. 7 goals to 5. Grandstand AFL.
Cordy in English. Crouch pounces. Hand pass for Hill. He's stripped of it by McLean. Picked up by Bailey Smith. Kicks up towards half forward to a contest. Norton has to turn spoiler. And then sees it over the line for a throw in.
Yeah, great contest.
It was well done by Aaron Norton, because the Bulldogs at the moment are investing one around the stoppage, having an extra down there, and the Saints are choosing to have their +1 defence. So the forwards are really, from the Bulldogs, are really going to try and even the contest to bring to ground well, and that's what Norton did there.
Ball in 50 metres out from the Dogs' goal. McLean from the stoppage gives it to Bontempelli. Kicks towards full forward over the head of Darcy. Howard out the back for the Saints. Can share it with Wood. In the left back pocket. Kicks out to Butler on a long lead.
Subbed out of the game last week, Dan Butler. 26-year-old, game 107. He was a Premiership Tiger back in 2017. Pinpoints his pass down the wing, and Stocker takes the mark. Former Blue, first-round pick. 4 years at Carlton, making the switch this year to St Kilda. Kicks down the wing. Owens the target, slips past him. Higgins has got it off the left peg. Chips it short to Caminiti. Another pre-season pickup for St Kilda. Closes to 55 out. He looks for home. He's kicked it right to the goal line. English is back. Knocks it through. And a rush behind St Kilda by 10 points. 15 played third term. 7-5 to 5-7.
Dogs quickly bring it in. Smith finds Caleb Daniel at left half back. And there's a whistle from the non-controlling umpire. So it's a free kick downfield to Norton. Looks like Wilkie is the guilty party. So Norton from centre wing broadcast side chips forward for Daniel. It's not a great kick. Easy pickings for Patton. He wants to use the corridor, and it's aggressive kick, and it finds Cordy in the middle of the centre square.
Cordy's going to continue to shift from one side of the ground to the other at the city wing. Butler looking back over his head. Doesn't mark. Now got to fend off Baker. Gets rid of him. Kicks inside 50. Gresham climbs. No mark. Centre half forward for the Saints. Caminiti scoops it up. Lays it off by hand to Gresham. Shoots goalward. Hasn't quite got it. Off balance. And a mark taken by English in front of the behind post. And send it back the other way for the Dogs. He goes short to Williams.
He's working hard. Big Tim English. He's providing a lot of support for his defenders, and here he is again on cue, but just working really hard up and down the ground at the moment.
English in the opposite back pocket, chips it out to half-back for Crozier, out of the defensive 50, hand pass to Bailey Smith. Saints by 10 points, time on third term. Smith kicks down the wing, out after it, the two number 14s, Weston, Stocker. Stocker does really well, wins the one-on-one, hands it away to Wanganeen Miller, goes by hand to Wood, who chips it short to Cordy. He's marking on the city wing, Saints by 10, 16 played in fact, third quarter.
Hand pass over the top to Clark, who handballs to Crouch. From 50 metres out at centre half forward, it's a high ball towards full forward. Bruce in front, whistle on play, free kick Dogs. Bruce chips short to Dre.
Both teams just struggling that last kick inside 50, aren't they, at the moment? Struggling to find a mark inside 50 since that Cordy shot at goal. Game's up and back a bit here. Both teams will be with the tongues out in a sec.
Dre kicks to Williams, who just winds up and sends it long down the line. It's over the contest. McLean, he couldn't gather it. Patton to Battle, who gives it to Cordy, who's turned it over, and Daniel takes the intercepting mark for the Dogs and kicks into the centre square. It's a great kick and finds Jones in the bullseye, but look out! Run down by Butler holding the ball. Saints take the advantage. Wanganeen Miller gives it to Caminiti, who crosses the paint at 50 for his first goal in the AFL. Welcome to the big time. Oh, these kids at St Kilda are exciting. Saints lead back out to 16, 8-5-53 to the Dogs, 5-7-37, 18 played third term. Grandstand AFL, Mark Murphy and Luke Boy, your experts.
Well, you're spot on, Jess. The kids from the Saints are very exciting because you could have had Jay Gresham running onto his left foot and had every reason to give it to him, but he thought, no, I'm going to back myself in here. I'm going to trust how good I am and kick it from 50 and straight over the goal umpire's hat. That's a classy finish for your first goal in AFL footy.
Great chase and tackle, wasn't it? Dan Butler, that'll put a big smile on the coach's face. We know that's what he's in the team for. Hasn't been doing it all that consistently over the past 12 months, Dan Butler, but he's looked back to his pressure and hunting and tackling best tonight.
A great moment for him. Had it behind last week. He had one earlier tonight on his third attempt. Kicks his first. Saints by 16 points, and they get a free in the middle for a ruck infringement. The prospect, Roland Marshall, kicks out to half forward. Burns leaping up for the footy. No mark. Spills front and centre to Baker. Off the back flank. Hurried handball to Keith. Gives it to Bruce. He's under the pump. Owens has got him. Hand pass over the boundary line. Deliberate. Gee, it looked like holding the ball. The upset play on and then pinged him anyway for Deliberate as it crossed the boundary line. And Clark straightens up with a short kick to steal, but now the blood rule is going to be enforced with Roland Marshall having a bit of claret from his left ear. He's hitting the bench.
Yeah, it's good self-awareness from the umpire then. He realised he missed the holding the ball and thought, I'm going to pick him for Deliberate instead.
Just win him straight back over as Saints fans. He's the two-time All-Australian, the captain of the Saints, Jack Steele, kicks into the forward pocket. They all reach for it, and in the end, it's off hands and out of play. Forward pocket for the Saints. St Kilda by 16 points, so they've kicked 3 goals to 1 in the quarter. And after the Bulldogs drew within 5 points at half-time, it's now St Kilda by 16 as we tick into time on in the third.
Ball spun back into play. Darcy and Ruck, and now Daniel to McRae. Hand pass put Duray under pressure, is wrapped up immediately. He asked the question, but the umpire says, give it to me.
North Melbourne first goal of the third quarter over in Perth, so 11 minutes into the term. North Melbourne 6-4-40, Fremantle 3-7-25.
Ball up, right forward pocket for St Kilda. Whistle on play. It's a holding free kick. What way will it go? St Kilda's way. Owens to take the free for the Saints. 30 out, 45-degree angle to the right.
They've been impressive here, the Saints. They've weathered the storm and come back at the Bulldogs in the last couple of minutes. Just being cleaner and a bit more aggressive. And I'm not sure there was much in the free kick, but...
Well, it's a young, tall Darcy, just grabbing a little handful of jumper in that ruck contest.
The 3 in a row to St Kilda. Owens guides it through. He's got 2, and St Kilda have 8. 8-5-53, the Dogs. 5-7-37. Margin back to 22. As we tick into time on in the third term on Grandstand AFL.
Right, they've just dialed up the pressure again, Merv, and I think the Dogs, the way they're playing again, though, is inviting it in. That flick around, handball back, referring the pressure to your teammate. It's just allowing the Saints to come forward to defend and keep putting that pressure on like they were able to do in that first quarter and a half. So all of a sudden now, the Dogs desperately need the next goal.
Kez Peterson on the boundary.
No concerns down here for Owen Marshall, guys. He's got the Joel Selwood headgear back on, new jumper, and he's into the centre bounce straight away.
We love that. Strapping around the bonds. Very rugby union-esque. English and Marshall, as it has been for most of the night so far. All of a sudden, St Kilda back out by 22, wins it down, and there's a stoppage again straight away. Gresham locked up by Libba. Alongside the centre circles. Saints with a 3-and-a-bit goal break from the restart. Clark given a long time to get rid of it. Eventually a hand pass out in front of Steele. He sockers to centre half forward. Phillippo puts his head over it. He's tackled by Crozier. Taken to ground. The ball comes out. Says play on. Gresham's hand pass picked off by Dale. Back edge of the centre square. Hand pass to McRae. Slick hands to Crozier. He's lost it in the tackle. Comes out the way of Cordy. 70 from home. Chips inside 50. Gresham takes the mark left half forward for St Kilda.
Again, just that one handball too many, providing that pressure. I think it was Hunter Clark who just got a hand in, was able to turn the ball over. They were out, the Dogs, if that handball had have gone through. Zane Cordy involved again. He's had a good quarter, Cordy.
Jane Gresham just sniffing an opportunity, playing midfield at the moment and just getting forward of the ball whenever his teammates get a hand on it.
Kick 2 last week, Jade Gresham. He's going with a snap across the body. Hasn't hit this. Live footy, still forward pocket for the Saints. Crozier grabs it. He's tackled. Higgins has got him and a ball up. So forward 50 stoppage for the Saints. Right forward pocket, 15 out from their attacking goal at the Coventry end. St Kilda by 22.
Cordy palms it down, straight to Liberatore, gives it to Daniel, hooks it around the corner blindly. Sinclair in front position. Saints fans wanted a free, nothing doing. And they all dive on top of it and lock it up. 45 out from the Saints goal. Saints by 5 at half-time. Dogs got to within 3, now margin back out to 22. The rucks go up, down to Ross. Sweeping hand pass out to Gresham from the boundary line to a dangerous position. No one home for the Saints. Crozier collects. He's tackled, brought to ground, ball up. 15 out, directly in front of goal.
Repeat stoppages here inside the forward 50 for the Saints. Up it goes. Cordy just palms it down, but straight to Daniel. Somehow got a possession out of there to Ross. He's tackled a metre in front of him, and another ball up. 20 out for the Saints goal. Karen Peterson.
Guys, the Bulldogs have made their sub, so Robbie McComb comes into the game. Sam Darcy, the unlucky, they've gone small ball. Sam Darcy's been subbed out of the game.
Thanks, Kez. English down to Gresham. Breaks a tackle for St Kilda. Hands it to Wood. Goal coming up. Pops it through. And St Kilda with a flex here in the third term. 4 unanswered goals. 24 minutes travelled in the third term. The Saints restore a 28-point break. 10-5 to 5-7. Mason Wood, the lefty, with his first of the night.
Josh Bruce seems to think that he's touched this. He's screaming at the umpires. They do review every goal, don't they? But
yeah.
Ball's back in the middle, so...
Just like the mix of Gresham playing through the midfield at the moment. He's He's just so electric, and you just feel that every time the St Kilda midfielders have it inside, they know that he's running on that outside and just getting the ball out to him in space. He's just causing a lot of havoc at the moment for the Bulldogs. That burst of energy and the taking the yardage of legs is really causing some damage.
So the goal stand, Bruce was adamant he touched it, but upon review it counts. From the restart, Bontempelli gives it to Liberatore, jams it on the boot towards centre half forward. It's off hands, out the back is Sinclair for St Kilda. Has a bounce inside defensive 50, then hand passes to Wood. From left half back, drills a pass to Wanganeen Miller. There's marked between left half back and the wing, and he'll be marched 50 metres. Maybe encroaching on the mark.
20-year-old Nasiah Wanganeen Miller plays on by hand to Sinclair, the All-Australian, pops it inside 50, perfect kick. And Zane Cordy underneath it, leaps up, takes the mark. 45-degree angle, 45 from home.
Well, the Dogs have gone back to sleep again. At 50 metres, it was young McComb who's just come onto the ground, so they just allowed Jack Sinclair, who's the Saints' prime mover, to run alongside, get the handball received, and just pop a kick over the top to Zane Cordy, who's found in way too much space.
In a rare group as a Dogs premiership player now in his new colours, Zane Cordy bangs through his second of the night, and it's as wide as it's been. St Kilda by a new game high, 34 points as we tick towards three-quarter time, 11-5-71. The Bulldogs stagnant, 5-7-37. Luke Ball and Mark Murphy on Grandstand AFL.
Well, stagnant's the word, Corby, because Ball, you called that spot on. It was one of those 50s where I think it was Jack Sinclair initially ran past with his opponent. His opponent got in that protected space and caused the 50. He just ambled up and just popped it in front of big Zane Cordy. And the Bulldogs, all their good work of getting back into the game in that back half of that second quarter, and it looked like at the start of this quarter they were going to sort of go on with it, but the Saints, to their credit, have just been harder around the contest and working a lot harder and just more switched on.
That Norton miss at the 7-minute mark of the quarter would have put them in front. It's been one-way traffic ever since, but they win it out of the middle. English, hand pass to Williams, but it bounces off him, picked up by Wood, gives it to Sinclair, flares the kick out wide to Hill. Chips it further afield to half forward, but has turned it over, and Crozier takes the intercepting mark at right half back. Aggressive kick into the centre square, finds Bontempelli just.
The Bond continues to move the ball from one side of the ground to the other. Long kick out to the dockside for Baker. Takes the mark for the Bulldogs. Sweeping hand pass to Smith. Smith just pokes his pass out in front of McLean, and he takes the mark back with the flight. Still 52 out. Hand pass away to Baker. Puts on the Jets. Shoots goalward. Baker misses. Just to the left. 5-8 to 11-5. St Kilda by 33 points. 28 gone in the third term. Over in Perth, it's still North Melbourne over Fremantle by 9 points. 2 goals each in the third quarter. 7-4 to 5-7. So time on third term there. North Melbourne by 9.
Saints bringing in through Wanganeen Miller to battle in the back pocket, and now chip short to Dougal Howard. Still inside defensive 50. Kicks laterally to Stocker. Kicks across the face of goal to Wilkie in the left back pocket. Now the ground's opened up for St Kilda. Wilkie has a bounce from left half back. Chips to Wood, who's alone on the wing. He moves it forward to Owens, who's marked between wing and half forward. Quick to move it to Marshall, who's taken the mark at left half forward, just inside the field of play. He's got it 52 metres from home.
Just work rate again, Murph.
Yep.
Just see them Saints players running past Dogs players.
And then chips it inboard to Clark.
Clark's going all the way back to Dougal Howard. There's just one player behind him on the ground. He's in the front edge of the centre square. Kicks it into a crowded forward 50. Out in the direction of Caminiti. Got his hands to it. No mark. Follows up. Hand pass to Gresham. Kept it alive to Marshall. Hand pass out to half forward for Hill. Against the boundary line. Snaps to the goal square. English got hands on it. Higgins trying to soccer it through. In the end, there's a free kick. And it's going to go the Bulldogs' way. It'll be taken by English. Get his arms chopped in all of that in the marking contest. And we've got a free kick. Last line of defence for the Dogs goes short to Doc Duray, the two-time premiership winning Hawk in the back pocket. St Kilda by 33. They're on top again. Half hour mark, third term.
Kicks long to the outer side. Standing tall in front as Marshall takes the intercepting mark. Squares it up to Ross at centre-half forward, but coming through is Bontempelli to spoil. Picked up by Sinclair of St Kilda, though. Gives it to Howard, who chips it forward. And Crouch is marked at centre-half forward. Shoots a pass into the arc, looking for Ross. In a big collision, coming through is Burns. He gives it to Gresham. Hand pass along the ground to Crouch, and now to Clark. Hand passes to Stocker, had too much on it. Marshall, and now the Dogs come up with it through Bontempelli, off to McRae.
McRae off and running, nothing up ahead, has to hand pass out wide to Jamara on the logo, had the blinkers on. He's caught by Bradley Hill, holding the ball. And Wood takes the advantage, not the best idea. His hand pass is a turnover. Dale wins it back for the Dogs, gives it to McRae, and he's out of play. So a boundary throw in City wing after all that. And looking at the television monitors, Luke Beveridge stands up in the coach's box and starts to make his way downstairs. His team completely outplayed in this third quarter. And St Kilda opening up a game-high advantage a few moments ago as Marshall grabs it out of the ruck on the wing, kicks down to half forward, thumped back by the Bulldogs, but straight to Steele. Hand pass to Clark, kicks inside 50, out into open space in the forward pocket. Keith, first one back, the key defender for the Dogs. He wants the boundary line, he's caught by Higgins, right on the bell, and the up gives the Dogs defender the benefit of the doubt. And that'll do us through three quarters. It was all St Kilda in Q1. The Dogs finished fast in the second term, and then St Kilda re-established their dominance in that third quarter. They kicked 6 goals to 1 in the term. They've kicked the last 5 of the game, and at three-quarter time they lead it by 34 points. St Kilda 11-5-71, the Western Bulldogs 5-8-38 at three-quarter time. The goal kickers for the Saints, Mateus Filippo has kicked 3. He's got the first in every single quarter. Then 2 each for Mitch Owens and Zane Cordy. Singles for Gresham, Steele, Wood and Caminiti. His first in AFL footy coming in that third term. Meanwhile for the Western Bulldogs, Aaron Norton's got a couple. And then singles for Baker, Garcia and English. 11 goals to 5. The Saints by 33 points. It is three-quarter time at Docklands. The thoughts of Luke Ball and Mark Murphy coming up on ABC Radio Sport Digital and now streaming through the ABC Listen app. This is Grandstand AFL.
ABC Listen.
So, what's the craziest question you've ever been asked on the Dr. Carl podcast?
Well, Triple J listeners are pretty imaginative, so we've been asked questions like, why do men have nipples?
And what happens if you shoot a gun in space? And how do trees talk to each other? The answer, of course, is the Wood Wide Web.
Carl.
Dr. Carl and Dr. Lucy have all the answers on the Dr. Carl podcast. Find it on the ABC Listen app.
Grandstand AFL.
Now streaming every match on the ABC Listen app.
Look for the AFL button.
Advantage is paid. The Saints move it forward, and Filippo marks at centre-half forward.
He's got a lovely left foot. Saw him kick a goal like this in the pre-season.
Mateus Filippo, number 10 draft pick from inside the centre square, has given it everything! This kid is going places! Sweeping hand pass to Bontempelli from inside the centre square. Norton's out the back and he's marked it. Norton, the immediate reply, and he's just snuck it home. Daniel takes the intercepting mark for the Dogs and kicks into the centre square. It's a great kick and finds Jones in the bullseye, but look out! Run down by Butler holding the ball. Saints take the advantage. Wanganeen Miller gives it to Caminiti, who crosses the paint at 50 for his first goal in the AFL. Welcome to the big time. Oh, these kids at St Kilda are exciting.
Down to Gresham, breaks a tackle for St Kilda, hands it to Wood, goal coming up, pops it through. And St Kilda with a flex here in the third term.
The 2023 AFL season.
On radio,
ABC Sport Digital.
And now streaming on the ABC Listen app.
Oh, we love the ABC Listen app. We're streaming both games tonight. So if you've got the ABC Listen app, which you do, all you got to do is download it from the App Store on your smartphone. Open it up, bottom right-hand corner. Click on that magnifying glass. Search AFL There's ABC AFL, which is the one you're currently listening to that we're broadcasting on, and also on ABC Radio across the country. And if you want ABC AFL Extra, you'll get the full call of the game between Fremantle and North Melbourne, which North have led all night. Time on in the third quarter, North Melbourne 8-4-52. They lead Fremantle 6-8-44, so an 8-point lead for North over the Dockers. Here at three-quarter time, it's St Kilda by 33 points over the Dogs. They've kicked the last 5 goals. There is some concern, though, on the St Kilda bench. Karen Peterson is downstairs. Kez.
Thanks, Corby. There is real concern down here from the St Kilda camp. Their captain, Jack Steele's gone downstairs at three-quarter time, clutching at his right shoulder. Now, for those Saints fans who would remember, he did an AC joint in his right shoulder in around May last year, and he missed about 8 weeks of football. So, real concern for the St Kilda camp. He definitely looked distressed and not overly happy, so I'll keep you posted when he comes back out.
Thanks, Kez. That's a blow there. Two-time All-Australian Jack Steele. The thoughts of Luke Ball and Mark Murphy at three-quarter time?
Well, they traded goals early in that third quarter, Murph, but again from then on it was all the Saints, and it was just work rate again. You could just tell they and that's been the story of the night really. They just wanted to work harder, to run harder, to break lines. So many times as that quarter went on, we saw Saints players running past Bulldogs opponents into space, and if not getting it themselves, opening up some space for a teammate to get it. And Zane Cordy was the surprise pack of that quarter. He really came into the game, didn't he? Kick 2 goals and set another one up. So, disappointing response again from the Dogs, but all credit has to go to the Saints. They've brought their work boots today. They've brought the pressure. They had 60-odd tackles. They've had more contested possessions, clearances. They really are leading all over the ground. And, they were able to capitalise a bit that quarter, and they absolutely deserve their lead. And I guess the hope will be that they can produce another 30 minutes of that intensity and go on and win this game. That they'll very much deserve. And from the Bulldogs' point of view, well, again, they have to throw caution to the wind. They have to take risks. They've brought the running player on. They've subbed the tall player off. So maybe throw the magnets around. Who can push forward? Who's back? Maybe Ed Richards can be one who can go from one end to the other. Can someone else go into the midfield? They tried Caleb Daniel in the centre bounce that quarter. Didn't have an impact on the game. So, they need to come up with something, don't they? Throw the magnets around a bit, as I said, but go back to taking those risks. They did try it a bit in that quarter. They tried to jam the ball back through the middle of the ground at times. They just weren't able to execute, and the Saints' pressure again was able to force some turnovers. So ultra impressive, the Saints. Can they finish it off in this last quarter?
Yeah, well, that's the one thing that really stands out to me is a Ross Lyon side is all about pressure and work rate, and that's exactly what we're seeing here tonight. And we saw that last week, but I thought they looked a bit in danger going into half-time, the way in which the Bulldogs just sort of put the foot on the throat a little bit in that back sort of 10 minutes in that second quarter. But the way in which the Saints worked their way through that quarter and got that reward for effort was really impressive. But there's no doubt the Bulldogs will come at some point. They've got too much class in that midfield not to throw that caution to the wind and try and score at all costs here. So should be a good last quarter of football.
Still no Jack Steele on the St Kilda bench, so they've got the 3 rotations. They haven't used their sub, Marcus Windhager, unused as we enter the final term. Saints by 33. Seb Ross puts his head over it. Umpire lets them go for a minute, and now Bontempelli locked up with the footy. Ball up again.
Interesting, the sub, isn't there? There really is no excuse not to use it now, isn't it? Given that it's a strategic sub, so expect Windhager to come onto the ground this quarter.
Marshall wins the tap, straight down towards Crouch. Hand pass out to Ross, kicks hurriedly to the wing, but Keith for the Bulldogs takes the intercept mark. Saints by 33 as we enter the final term.
Kicked 6 goals to 1 in that third term as Keith switches play to Bruce at left half back. He chips short and finds Richards, defensive side of the wing. Quick to play on, and then sends a long ball towards half forward. Howard gets a fist in there. Garcia tracking it close towards the line. And Hill and Patton locking up McComb, and we've got a ball up just inside the field of play, 50 metres out from the Dogs' goal.
Up it goes. Marshall first hands on the footy. It comes back to him in the end. McRae tries to walk away with it. Marshall tackles him, takes him to ground, and there's a pack of around 5 or 6 players. We'll have another ball up. The Bulldogs coming home with the Coventry end. The Saints having kicked the last 5 goals in the game after the Dogs drew within 5 points. In fact, drew within 3 points. At one stage in the third quarter was as close as they got. Dogs win it at the coalface. Bontempelli, surge kick inside 50. It'll work out okay. And Bailey Williams in the forward 50 takes the mark. True centre half forward, 40 out.
Well, just one of those ones where you just throw it on the boot, and Mason Wood tried to get back to support his teammates, but the ball floated out to the centre half forward area, and the Bulldogs player was able to run onto an uncontested mark inside 50.
4 of their 5 goals tonight have come at the Coventry end, which the Dogs are kicking in this final term. Bailey Williams on the set shot. He misses out to the right. Minor score. And what we say in these moments, the cliches where we say, oh, you leant back on that, and that's why.
I was about to say it's in pretty good hands.
It's a beautiful kick around the ground, isn't he? But just sat back on that one.
32 points, the Saints lead early stages final term.
Sinclair restarts play for the Saints, finds Wilkie, and then kicks it back to the top of the square and finds Howard. And then kicks it out to the outer side looking for Hill, just gets there in time. Or did McRae get a hand in there? No. Hill takes the mark and then takes off. Sends a long ball towards half forward. Jones against Cordy. Gets past both of them. Duray out the back for the Dogs. Gives it to Jones from left half back. Kicks into the corridor. Smith has to make a contest. He was taken out and he will get the free kick. Hand passes inboard to Caleb Daniel from adjacent to the centre circles. Looks for Norton inside forward 50. Took out 3 Saints and then tackles Wanganeen Miller, who collected the footy and locked it up 40 metres out from home.
Big collision. Dougal Howard slow to get up. And Aaron Norton, just throwing himself at the contest.
Dougal still a little slow to rise, just holding his lower back. He's back with us now, and we'll have a ball up. Centre half forward for the Western Bulldogs. One down to Crouch, though, of the Saints. Kicks in the middle of the ground as nutmeg Caminiti. Slips through to Bruce. Hand pass away to English. Slick hands to McRae. To Liberatore. Now hand pass out to Duray. Gives it to Scott. As he's pressured, kicks inside 50 and West fell over. Battle takes the intercept mark. Last line of defence for the Saints. Swings it back out to the City side. Kicks to Patton. Short kick to Wilkie. Marks half-back flank.
Hand passes to Sinclair from right half-back. Runs his full measure and then chips short and finds Cordy on centre wing outer side. Chips it inboard to Clark, who's marked right on halfway. Kick short to Gresham, who's marked. 2 kicks from goal. Saints building nicely. They lead by 32. Gresham spears it inside the arc but has turned it over straight down the throat of Josh Bruce.
Again, just great ball use up until that probably 50, 70 metre mark, and that last kick inside 50 sort of hurt him for most of the night, hasn't it, Paulie?
Yeah, and clearly that's the benefit of, or the benefit will come if Max King's able to get back. Tim Memory, those class forwards who will be able to capitalise on these entries that they've had.
Daniel pulls the trigger on the 45 to Smith, but he doesn't move it on in a hurry. Saints well set up, so he takes some time. Swings it from one edge of the centre square to the other. Still in the defensive half. Finds Duray. Kicks a shocker. Floats its way through to Bradley Hill. Takes the intercept mark between wing and half back for the Saints. Gives it to Sinclair. Short kick to Caminiti. Here they go on the slingshot back the other way, the Saints. Caminiti is going to take a little time. Now he's called to go. Feeds a hand pass back to Patton. Still on the defensive side of halfway. Chips it out wide, and Sinclair, the All-Australian halfback, has got it against the boundary line City side.
He chips it further afield and finds Gresham. Between wing and half forward on the outer side of the ground, Gresham loads up and sends a long bomb into the pocket. Jones floating across the face of the pack, brought it to ground, but Hill picks it up for the Saints. Centres the ball, lovely kick, and Mason Woods marks 35 out directly in front.
Well done, Bradley Hill. Probably could have had every right to kick a little banana there, but did the team thing and saw 2 teammates really standing there by themselves, and Mason Wood finds himself on the end of it, so well done.
Just too much uncontested footy, though, down the wing. Slow play, too. Able to just chip it down, advance, and then Brad Hill, way too much space running on that loose ball, and lovely kick. And Mason Wood, this will cap off another terrific game of footy for him.
99 goals for the 29-year-old. Can't make the ton. He misses away to the left. St Kilda by 33, 11-6, 72 to the Dogs, 5-9-39. Let's get downstairs to Karen Peterson.
Great news for St Kilda fans. Jack Steele, very heavily taped right shoulder, but he's back onto the ground. Their unused sub, Marcus Windhager, hasn't moved from the back of the bench, so great news. Jack Steele back on the ground.
Thanks, Kez. You can see him at all at three-quarter time as Karen told us, doing that work down in the rooms. And shoulder complaint. The Dogs work it up to the defensive side of the wing, but it's out of play again, City side. Been an interesting night. The Saints led by 32 points early in the piece. And then the Western Bulldogs were able to kick the last 4 goals of the second quarter to draw within 5 before half-time, and the Saints pulling away again in that third term from the boundary throw-in. Hill hands it to Steele, kicks down to half-forward, but it's a turnover, and Crozier takes the intercept mark. And Marcus Windhager's got his warm-up top off. He's on the phone, so we could see him in a few moments. Karen Peterson.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Corby. You nailed it in one. Marcus Windhager's come on, and Ryan Burns is the unlucky St Kilda player, to be given the substitute vest.
Thanks, Kez. The Dogs work it to the wing. Richards kicks up towards half-forward through the fingertips of McLean, and the Saints back the other way through Sinclair. Shares it with Owens inside the centre square. Defensive hand pass to Patton. Has a bounce along centre-half back. In 2 minds, and then kicks out wide, bounces in front of Hill. City wing, and then drills a pass to Steele. He's marked just forward of the wing. Chips it into the path of Gresham, is marked at right half forward. He plays on quickly, kicks it to a dangerous position. It's through a couple of sets of hands. Wood out the back, and this time dribbles it towards goal, hits it into the post. 34 points the margin. St Kilda 11-7-73. The Dogs 5-9-39. 8 played, final term.
Last 5 goals of the game for St Kilda. Still haven't got a goal though in this final term. As English marks the kick out at half-back. Hand pass inboard to McRae. Kicks through the middle of Docklands. Awkward half volley. Pick up for Jamara. Traps it eventually. Gives it to Garcia. Still with the Dogs on halfway. The 1-2 with Bailey Smith. Garcia kicks down to half-forward and McLean marks. Smith keeps on running. Too much hang time in the kick from McLean. Made it tough for Williams. Howard spoils. It's out of bounds. Throw in 20 metres out from the Dogs' goal. They've covered off well all night, St Kilda.
It's just a bit lazy, wasn't it? That last kick inside 50, just need to get off the mark quick and pierce it through rather than just sitting back and just popping it over the top.
Saints by 34, ball in, Dogs forward 50. Norton palms it down. Sinclair for the Saints. Tries to paddle it to Crouch and finds him. His hand pass too hot for Clark. Picked up by Bontempelli, stripped of it by Wood. Umpire says play on. Saints went out. Steele, left back pocket. Hurry kick outside defensive 50. Knocked away from Cordy. Diving after it is Higgins. Can't collect it. Now Gresham has a go. He tries to feed it out. He's tackled by McLean. And eventually the umpire says ball up. Right half forward for the Dogs. They trail by 34. Nearly 10 minutes played, final term.
Dogs only kicked 1 goal in the final quarter last week. Only kicked 1 goal in the third quarter tonight and didn't kick any in the first. The scoring's really dried up in large moments of the night as the Saints hurriedly work it down the wing, but it's coming back. Crozier knocks it down to Dale kicks hurriedly into the middle of the ground. Awkward bounce in footy. Patton collects. He's tackled. Good tackle at that. Locks it to him. And it's Anthony Scott who forces the ball up. Front edge of the centre square for the Bulldogs. Coming home to the Coventry end. 10 minutes into the final term. Still no goal either way. Saints by 34. Saints hack it forward through Marshall. No mark for Caminiti. Comes down to Dale of the Bulldogs. Hand pass back into dispute. Turns it over. Clark to Windhager to steal all by hand. He links up with Sinclair.
He chips short to Clark. His mark still inside the centre square. And plays on looking for Windhager at centre half forward. Takes the mark, then releases Crouch by hand from 50 out directly in front. Bangs it towards full forward. To a one-on-one contest, is still alive, eventually goes through. Butler and Crozier tangle right on the goal line, is through for a rush behind. Saints by 35, 11-8-74 to the Dogs, 5-9-39.
He's tried pretty hard, Hayden Crozier, isn't he?
Yeah, he's been very good.
Could probably hold his head up high.
Richards to Duray, long kick out to Norton, who marks.
It's a weird feeling out there at the moment. It feels like the sting's just completely gone out of the game and just playing time, really, isn't it?
4 straight behinds for this quarter.
Norton kicks down the wing, but slips through the hands of Jamara, and at the back, Sinclair mops it up for the Saints. Short kick to Hill, Logo City wing. Sends his kick down to half forward, didn't quite hit it. Clean bowls everyone, and it's out of play. Half forward for the Saints. 11-8 to 5-9. 11 minutes into the last. No goal either way in the term. 35 points at Kilda's lead. Meanwhile, over in Perth, 3 minutes into the last quarter, North Melbourne by 16 points. 9-6-60, Fremantle 6-8-44. There is a call available on the ABC AFL Extra button on the Listen app.
From the ball in, Richards picks it up at ground level, hacks a kick forward. Saints have the numbers on the wing. Wilkie, he's stripped of it though, picked up by Norton, who kicks down the line. Dougal Howard back with a flight, couldn't complete the mark. Sinclair hand passes defensively to Battle. Free kick to the Saints. Advantage paid as Battle kicks inboard at the feet of Steele, and now it's a turnover. Garcia kicks it forward. Ugle Hagen's marked 45 out from goal.
Doesn't look right. Jack Steele, to me, that was a bit of an awkward sort of one. He looks like he's carrying that shoulder quite a bit. He just tried to pick up a ground ball and looked like he couldn't really do it with the right arm, unfortunately. So it doesn't look too good for the Saints skipper.
So Ugle Hagen will have to kick this all of 50 metres, 45-degree angle to the left to break a run of 5 goals in a row for St Kilda. Doesn't have the journey, touched on the line for a minor score. St Kilda 11-8-74. The Dogs 5-10-40, 12 and a half played final term here in Grandstand AFL.
Sinclair on the kick out to Wilkie, and Wilkie pokes his pass to half-back for Dougal Howard. This is shaped up as a horror start to the season for the Dogs. We heard all about their big 4 in the forward line and what they could do with them. Rory Lobb was injured leading into this week, so he's not even playing. And Sam Darcy, who was one of the big 3 tonight, subbed out in the third quarter. So much for the sort of Norton, Jamara, Darcy, Lobb combination. And it could be 0-2 with a 5-day break to play Brisbane on Thursday night. So round 3 comes around fast for them as the Saints with the short kicking game out of the back half. Ross shares it with Marshall. He gets it back, and Seb Ross, the left footer, drives it deep inside 50. Juggled marking a 10 for Owens. And Owens hangs on to it. Third effort falling to ground. He's already got 2 tonight, and he'll have a set shot here. 25 out, slightly right of centre.
It's almost as if, from the Dogs' point of view, they've got one eye to Thursday night, Murph. They're not working hard at all this quarter, not running this one out. It's almost like they're going to save some energy. Young Owens, he's worked hard. He's part of this sort of makeshift forward line. Let's see if he can capitalise on it.
For his third of the night, Owens, the Saints, they'll go marching in. A 40-point lead. 12-8-80. The Western Bulldogs 5-10-40. They have doubled the Dogs' score at the 14-minute mark of the final term.
Yeah, again, just way too easy. Just able to work the ball down the ground from defensive 50 through uncontested marks, and very, very little pressure from the Dogs. As I said, it's almost as if they've thought, no, we'll forget about this one. We've got a game coming up here in 5 days' time, which is not a great mindset, really.
No, it's not. It looks like, to me, the St Kilda key forwards have structured up a bit better after half-time. They're getting into some better positions and actually competing and getting some marks, as we saw then from Mitch Owens. But whereas the first sort of half of football, they found it tough, and the Western Bulldogs defenders were able to intercept quite easily. The second half's been a different story.
Dogs winning out of the middle through Bontempelli, who kicks into the pocket over the head of McComb and then past Ugle Hogan. McComb kept running but was brought down and stripped of it. Umpire says play on, picked up by Dougal Howard. Kicks around the corner, Bontempelli, the juggling effort, couldn't complete the mark. Ross has a go close to the line and out. Throw in 40 metres around from the Dogs' goal. And just noticing 7 combined goals from the teenage sensations today for the Saints. Owens, Philippo and Caminiti showing some good signs for St Kilda's future.
Boundary throw in. Half forward for the Dogs, passing through the stoppage. Daniel couldn't take it clean. Ross does well to get it out to Wanganeen Miller in the back pocket. High up and under out to half-back. Caminiti runs underneath it. Crozier can't complete the juggled effort. Spills to Jones. He taps it away to Bruce. Hand pass over his shoulder. West has got it. He's tackled, taken to ground. Windhager got him. I thought the ump was going to by holding the ball. Eventually it comes out. And Owens has tackled on that outer wing. Now, North Melbourne, by the way, still lead Fremantle by 15 points. 8 minutes into the final term. They've kicked the only goal of the final quarter in Perth. North by 15 over the Dockers.
Saints by 40 here as Liberatore wins it from the stoppage, gives it to Smith, kicks up towards half forward. Bontempelli wins the one-on-one contest against Battle. Kicks inside 50, it's touched by Patton on its way through Ugle Hagen. Garcia chases after it, he's tackled by Howard over the line. Throw in 30 metres around from the Dogs' goal. Saints by 40. They've kicked the last 6 of the game after the Dogs got within 3 points in that third quarter.
What a story that would be. North Melbourne over in Perth. And the boundary throw in here. English palms it down. Steele rather just soccers it forward for St Kilda. Out to meet it is Caminiti. He's tackled out of bounds. Throwing 70 out from the Dogs' goal. I mentioned the Bulldogs have the short week with the Thursday night game for St Kilda. It's about as big a week as they could have. Paulie, their 150th birthday celebrations next Saturday night.
Bombers at the G, yeah, and the Bombers got a chance to hit into that 2 and zip tomorrow as well. So, terrific start to the year.
The Saints by 40 to the final turn for the boundary throw-in. Hurried kick forward from Richards. Picked up by McComb, the sub. Slick hands to Garcia, to Dale. Oh, he saw Higgins coming. Higgins tackles him. Somehow got boot the ball. Wanganeen Miller for the Saints. Knocks it to Windhager. Hot hand pass. Butler goes back. Top of the defensive goal square to Wilkie. Shares it with Howard. Wilkie gets a second go at it. Kicks from the back pocket out to halfback. Crozier almost took the mark. Not sure he realised it. There's a whistle and a high tackle. It's coming back to Hayden Crozier at half forward for the Bulldogs, about 45 out.
Yeah, been one of the Dogs' best. This will be his 22nd possession, 10 marks. Just been part of a Bulldogs' defence. It's really been under siege for large parts of the game, but gets his opportunity to hit the scoreboard here.
Hadn't played since round 16 last year. Had an injury-interrupted season in 2020. One of the 4 inclusions this week that didn't play against the D's last Saturday. Hayden Crozier pulls his kick to the near side. He misses. 39 points, St Kilda's lead. So the Dogs have had one burst tonight where they kicked, 4 goals in the space of about 8 minutes. And other than that, they've kicked 1 goal for the night.
At the 4-minute mark of the third.
Under the roof in March.
Yeah.
It's not great.
Wanganeen Miller brings it in for the Saints. A long kick to the outer side. Back of the contest is Richards for the Dogs. Gives it to Caleb Daniel. Kicks into the corridor. Dale has to collect at ground level. Just got the hand pass out to English, who jams it on the boot inside 50. No one there for the Dogs. And Patton takes the intercepting mark for the Saints.
Well, the Bulldogs have certainly got all the pieces, don't they? They just haven't quite been able to put it together whatsoever this season so far. But they certainly have enough tools and enough class for the midfield to really cause some damage. But they're just not putting it together at all at the moment.
I thought with Dunkley going, they were able to get some bigger pieces down back and some height up forward, and it probably would have rounded them out a little better rather than over-indexing in the midfield. But, gee, it's broken down everywhere. They haven't played as an attractive style as a lot of other teams in the competition for all their weapons.
Been easy to score against too, 2 weeks in a row.
Hill goes back to Battle, and now Battle just kicks it to Howard. The Saints are happy just to play this one out. There's 5 minutes on the game clock to go as we tick into time on in the last. Battle sends his kick down the wing to Wanganeen Miller. St Kilda by 39. They've kicked the last 6 goals of the game. And here's Messiah in number 7. Kicks an absolute laser to Caminiti, who marks low down at right half forward. There's 60 out, and there's going to be a downfield free kick here. One of the non-controlling umpires, Matt Stevick, has spotted something against Josh Bruce. And Mitch Owens is going to be handed the footy in the forward pocket. I think Owens is trying to work out his kick, or is it a 50-metre penalty? Who's having the kick here?
He's going to have to go and rip it out of the youngster's hand.
Caminiti's
going to get it.
He's going to get it. So 50-metre penalty. And Owens, who's already got 3 for the night. And Anthony Caminiti, a teenager, on his way in to drop the hammer. He bangs it through. Party time for St Kilda. 45 points, a new game, high margin. 21 played, final term. 13-8-86, the Western Bulldogs, 5-11-41.
It's just been too easy, hasn't it? Boy, I mean, that last passage of play too, just being able to open space and just to hit targets, and then just a ill-disciplined decision forward of the footy just to give away an easy goal. Just caps off a bitterly disappointing night for the Bulldogs.
It's been good, hasn't he? Caminiti, 196, athletic, Beautiful kick.
Going to be a big frame once he puts on a bit more size, but he got some talent down there, those young kids at the moment.
7 in a row to the Dogs. And we're going to have a recall bounce in the middle.
North Melbourne by 14 points, Jess, over in Perth, 13 minutes into the final term. So they've still kicked the only goal of the last quarter.
Ross gets boot to ball, scrambles it forward for St Kilda. The fist came from Keith. Daniel collects it half back, sweeping hand pass to Duray, who's off. Takes a bounce at left half back, and chips short to the wing. Richards is marked. He kicks further afield to Baker, who drops the mark. It was an uncontested mark in the end. He's made a meal of it, and it's fallen over the line for a boundary throw-in. It's all falling apart for the Dogs in more ways than one. Margin 45, 22 played final term.
Both subs made on a tactical basis, so no real injury concerns to speak of. Jack Steele had a right shoulder looked at 3/4 time, but he's back out on the park. The boundary throw-in. Hill, hand pass ended up with Jamara. He couldn't take it clean. Ends up with Ross. Sells a dummy. Drew Jamara, then kicks hurriedly down the wing. No clean pickup. Keith just paddles it to his own advantage for the Dogs. The key defender whacks it back down the city wing. At the drop, Ross and Liberatore, and Ross just knocks it out of play. The boundary throw-in, St Kilda by 45. So 150th year for St Kilda. They'll have a big bash next Saturday night at the G against the Bombers. There'll be plenty to speak of during the week, and a lot of retrospective work done on 66, I'm sure, of course. St Kilda's famous premiership. And the members that are still with us to head along next Saturday night as Bailey Smith from the stoppage kicks inside the forward arc. Scooting through McComb, couldn't take it clean, got it back to Bailey Smith, who keeps on running. They share it out wide with West, back to McComb, trying to hit up Norton, no mark. And there's Sinclair, just rockets a hand pass to Clark, away to Stocker, and he feeds Wangadeen Millerer at half-back.
He chips down the corridor. Caminiti presents strongly. He's paid the mark inside the centre square. Wants to kick it to the broadcast wing, sweeps it to Wilkie, who marks at left half back. Looping hand pass to Sinclair, alone on the wing, chips it forward to Marshall. He loops the hand pass over the top to Ross from left half forward, kicks into the pocket to a 2-on-1 favouring St Kilda. And West lays an important tackle. Sinclair picks it up. He hand passes looking for Owens. He's bumped off it by Jones, and Dale escorts it over the line. Throw in 15 metres around from Saints' goal. They lead by 45. Let's get down to Karen Peterson.
We will get to Kez in the rooms post-game. 33,294 the crowd. St Kilda by 45 points. Deep forward for the Saints from the throw-in. Owens, hand pass back into dispute. West had it, lost it. Gave it away to McRae. There's a free kick. McRae was dumped after getting rid of it, and so Josh Bruce is in no hurry to try and take the advantage. And another poor night for the Western Bulldogs. They had moments last week against Melbourne, weren't able to cash in on the momentum, but it's hard to say that tonight. They had one purple patch late in the second quarter, and that has been it. In terms of the scoreboard, the way they've controlled play around the ground, kicked 4 goals in 11 minutes before half-time, and have kicked one other goal in the remainder of the game. 25 minutes into the final term, Toby McLean shares it with Williams. In front of the bench, he kicks the Bulldogs to half forward. Norton competing for it, spills front and centre. Unkind bounce for Garcia. Norton follows it up himself. Hand pass out to Baker against the boundary line. Sends his kick to the top of the goal square. Pounces off the head of Hill. Saints are going to win it back as Wilkie knocks it back to Hill. Hand pass to Ross, and now to Wangadeen Miller on half back.
In the back pocket, he kicks it to Crouch. Chips further afield to Gresham. He's content just to hold it up and then kick backwards to Ross inside defensive 50, who then chips it short to Clark at centre half back. Sweeps it across to Wilkie. He's marked in the left back pocket. Chips it short to Sinclair. They share it around the back half. St Kilda, they lead by 45. 25 played final term as Sinclair shoots it short to Stocker. He's got it defensive side of the wing as the Saints fans know the siren's imminent. Stocker, long down the line, no one there. English takes the intercepting mark for the Dogs and is quick to hand pass over the top to Daniel.
Daniel kicks back inboard. McComb on the bounce. for the Bulldogs. Hand pass to McRae. Slick hands to McLean. Back to McRae. Turns it over. Crouch for St Kilda. Look at him queuing up through the middle of Docklands. Hand pass to Owens. Gives it to Clark. Shakes one tackle. Back to Owens. Hand pass to Filippo. He gives it to Butler. Spin move. Jams it on the boot. Marking attempt for Gresham. He's dragged down top of the goal square. Free kick. And Gresham will get it 12 metres out, dead in front. He snaps hurriedly. Pops it through. And another reason to celebrate for Ross Lyons, guys. They'll be 2-0. It's 51 points. A game high margin at the 27-minute mark of the final term. St Kilda 14-8-92. The Western Bulldogs 5-11-41.
It's been very ugly, Paulie, this last
they've genuinely put the queue in the rack, I reckon.
Yeah,
it's almost like the message has gone out. We're playing here again in 5 days. No one get hurt. Honestly, it's been such a listless performance, really, since 5 minutes of that third quarter. Yep. I can't put it's hard to find an excuse for them, Murph. It really is. They played 7 days ago. They brought some run into the team. It's a real head scratcher. That's the Dogs. Obviously, the Saints have been superb. Yep. Full credit to them.
Back in the middle, English palms it down to Smith, who bombs it towards half forward. McRae, close to the boundary line. The Saints fans rise to their feet. St Kilda are 2-0 to start 2023 with an emphatic 51-point win over the Dogs. Kilda were quick out of the blocks. They kicked the first four goals of the opening term to be 24-point leaders at quarter time. It took until the 18-minute mark of the second term for the Dogs to kick the first of the night through Oscar Baker. They made a late run to get within 5 at half time, got within 3 points when Aaron Norton missed at the 7-minute mark of the third, and that would be as close as they get. 8 in a row to finish off the game for St Kilda. They win 14-8-92 to 5-11-41.
As good as it was for St Kilda, it was every bit as bad for the Western Bulldogs. 14-8 to 5-11. The Dogs are 0-2. St Kilda are 2-0. Division 2.0 from Ross Lyon at St Kilda, starting his second tenure with the club. 33,294 in to see it. The Dogs' first home game of the year. I'd be pretty displeased with what they saw. St Kilda by 51. Luke Ball and Mark Murphy pull it all apart for us. What's your biggest takeaway after watching 4 quarters of that?
Well, I'll start with the winners, maybe, Murph, because I think that's as much the story, of course, and they were just couldn't have been more impressive. They obviously went to school, did their homework, were really well prepared coming into the game. They would have taken points out of what Melbourne did to the Bulldogs last week, and not only last week, but we spoke about how the second half of last year, the Bulldogs, their inability to restrict opposition from scoring and getting runs on and multiple goals in a row has become a real issue for them. And but it started at the contest. And at first quarter, 30 tackles, set up those 16 inside 50s. They were able to control field position, set up behind the ball and really restrict any fluent ball movement from the Dogs in that first quarter. And save for about that 10 minutes in that second quarter in the lead up to half time. They just completely had the game on their terms. Absolutely dominated, worked harder, ran harder, and tackled harder. And in the end, the floodgates opened up for them to be able to score enough. You know, we spoke enough about this makeshift forward line. Well, they look dangerous, but any team's going to look dangerous when they're allowed to move the ball and operate with as little pressure that they faced tonight with that Bulldogs team. So I'm just looking down at the skipper now. He's scratching his head. He's probably a little bit stunned as to what they put out tonight. But all credit to the Saints with the effort that they were able to bring tonight. And that's 2 weeks in a row they've been able to restrict teams to less than 10 goals, Murph.
Yeah, well, that's right. And we sort of knew that going into tonight's game that defensively, St Kilda were going to be strong. They were terrific last week against Fremantle, and we know what they were able to do last year, Freo. So to do it really well last week and to back it up against the Bulldogs tonight was really impressive. But conversely, the other way around, kicking 14 goals, 8, and having 57 inside 50s, it's really exciting for the St Kilda fans to come here, and I think they're seeing a style of play in which they can get a good sense of what Ross Lyon's bringing to the football club, and to see an offensive unit the way in which they worked tonight was really impressive. And we spoke a bit about their lack of key targets being well-known players, but they're young kids who are their key tools at the moment forward of the ball were really impressive tonight. They all combined for, I think it was 8 goals, wasn't it, Corby? Their 3 tall targets down forward, and Zane Cordy played a role in that third quarter and really straightening them up. And they were well and truly the better side of the day in all facets of the game, whether that be the contested ball, the uncontested ball as well, clearances, inside 50s is a real demolition.
We got a shield to be presented, obviously, for St Kilda. Obviously, a lot of these clubs do this with matches to be played against one another. This is the Trevor Barker Ted Whitten Challenge Plate, so being presented for what is the 24th time. So St Kilda win that tonight, 14-8-92 over the Western Bulldogs, 5-11-91, a 51-point win for the Saints. It's amazing they got 13 on the injury list, St Kilda. Obviously got some big names out at the moment, so no King, no Membry, no Hayes. In terms of the bigs in their forward line, they're missing Billings. They lost 2 last week with Bytel and Webster both going out. Caulfield, who gives them some class down back. Dan McKenzie coming off a career best year. And yet what they have, which is what we've seen from Ross Lyon's teams in the past, they have a really clear system. They have a defensive first attitude, but there seems like significant buy-in. Here is Jack Steele, by the way, having just been presented the shield.
I really appreciate the support. Thanks to the Dogs for taking part in this game with us. I'd like to thank the Barker and Whitten families as well as Challenge and Rule Foundations. Thanks, guys. See you next week.
That shield's a plate, by the way, of course, the Barker Whitten plate, but they're clearly on message, aren't they, in the way that they're going about at St Kilda. And to do the simple math, they're 2-0. There's 20 games to go in the season, and it feels like expectations are sort of super low given the obvious problems on the injury list, but that's a hell of a start to the new year.
It is. They look fit. They're covering the ground really well, and maybe that was as much the Dogs having lead in their boots tonight, but they look really fit tonight, and they're getting really good contributions from potentially some unheralded players. I mean, Mason Wood, another terrific game tonight, which he had 24 disposals and a goal. He's really found a niche out on that wing. As you see now, he's being interviewed by Channel 7, so a guy who was discarded by North Melbourne. We know, what he brings in terms of his strengths. He's an elite runner, so found his spot on that wing, and Brad Hill, who looks like under Ross has found a bit of spark again. Gresham looks fit, doesn't he? Jack Sinclair continues his outstanding career, and Steele and Ross came into the side tonight as well. So, and Hunter Clark was the other one that I was thinking of, who looks to have progressed again this year. So you're right, Corb. There's plenty not out there. But I think what we're seeing is, with that comes opportunity, and some of those guys have taken an opportunity to improve their career and keep going another step, and others have come into the side and playing their role.
So last week they conceded 7 goals. This week they conceded 5. It's 93 points they've conceded across 8 quarters of footy, so it means their percentage is 177. And as it stands tonight, they've leapfrogged Collingwood with 2 wins from 2 starts, and they're on top of the tree.
So what they can do there is really hone in. Okay, let's really aim to be top 4 in the competition for scores here, for defence, for points against, let's call it. And so they're off to a fly with that. Now, we know that our offence and our forward structure is going to be a work in progress. We know we've got Max King coming back in the second half of the year. So let's focus on this for the first half of the year and see what that can give us. See if that can win us some games, and what it will do is keep them in a lot of contests, won't it? Even against teams with a lot more talent on the park. And it's 2 from 2 from that point of view. And I think from the flip side on that, Corb, as well, to me that says enough. It says a little bit about the 2 teams that they've played and the way that they're playing at the moment and the issues that they've got in terms of how they're moving the ball. Both Fremantle last week, and it looks like they're in real trouble here again against the Kangaroos at home. And the Bulldogs, 2 weeks in a row, have been really found wanting against two teams that have structured up well defensively.
Yeah, and I do recall when Ross Lyon first got to the football club, he did say these guys can run. So there's no doubt that he's brought an element of defensive transition and working together as a collective, but he's obviously encouraged those guys to use their legs and run and dash and take the game on, and that's what we saw tonight. They didn't quite do that last week. They didn't hit the scoreboard as heavily last week, but they were able to win against Fremantle. But tonight I was actually really impressed with the way in which they moved the ball from their D50 all the way to probably 50 to 70 out. And they had a few issues probably earlier on in the game about trying to link up that last kick inside 50, but the second half they were much better in terms of trying to get the ball into space for some of their key young tools who seem to get themselves in a position a lot better in that second half. But he's obviously encouraging the midfielders and the guys with legs to really use their pace and take the game on.
They got Essendon next Saturday night in what is a 150th anniversary milestone game for St Kilda, and they're 2-0. Let's get into the winners' rooms. The Saints home by 51 over the Dogs. Karen Peterson, Kez.
Thanks, Corby. St Kilda players are just circling up at the moment, as you said. 51-point win in front of 33,000 here tonight at the Docklands. The Saints have started the season 2-0. They're absolutely flying down here.
When the Saints go marching in, oh, when the Saints go marching in, oh, how I want to be in St Kilda. Oh, when the Saints go marching in, oh, when the Saints go marching in, go marching in, oh, when the Saints go marching in, oh, how I want to be in St Kilda. Oh, when the Saints go marching in.
How is it down there, Kaz?
It is relatively subdued, actually, Corby. I thought there'd be a lot more gusto sung with that song, but not quite what I was expecting. They're about to duck into a team meeting. Then we're going to be lucky enough to be joined by Seb Ross for some reaction after that 51-point win over the Dogs tonight.
Thanks, Kez. They were like that last week. I was in the rooms when they beat Fremantle, and I expected the same thing. A close win against the Dockers undermanned, and just seems like they're keeping a lid on it at the moment.
Yeah, very, very Ross Lyon-esque. You can feel like you can see his imprint on this team already. So I think one thing that's obvious with Ross, and we saw this obviously with his first stay in the Saints, but even at Fremantle, when he joined the Dockers in 2012, so they were in the wilderness a little bit. He came in, they made the final 6 in his first year, and so it feels like he immediately brings the floor up, that the floor's higher than what it was previously, and that sort of weekly non-negotiable that Ross Lyon teams seem to have. And this St Kilda team, as you touched on, defensively in particular, they've got that straight away. Yeah, I think that's fair. I think all teams would preach effort and have some sort of expectation. But you're right. I think his track record is that that the players genuinely understand the effort that's required to play in that team week in, week out. And he was always big on integrity of selection. If they don't bring it, doesn't matter what your name is, your birth certificate, you're not going to play. And so I don't want to hear about the guys that aren't available, that are injured, that aren't, their best 18. If you bring that and play your role, you'll play. So I think that's what we've seen in the first couple of weeks already this year.
And it certainly automatically raises the bottom probably 5 or 6, which is usually where the good sides become the great sides, is their bottom few that you sort of hope that turn up any given weekend. You get those guys who really believe in their role and play it to the best of their ability, and that's where the side is certainly improving, because you look across their list and a lot of them you're not quite sure of some of the names just yet, but they're making an impact, aren't they?
We will bring you the concluding stages of the Fremantle North Melbourne game, so there is a call available of that, of course, through the ABC Listen App. It is close in the finish, but we will replay the concluding stages of the game between Fremantle and North Melbourne. The Roos have led the majority of the night, so the Roos are still in front in the concluding stages. We'll bring it to you shortly after some more reaction from the winning St Kilda rooms. Saints by 51 points over the Western Bulldogs, 14-8-92. The Dogs 5-11-41. Corbin Middlemass and Jess Webster. Karen Peterson is in the St Kilda rooms. Reaction from Seb Ross in just a moment. Mark Murphy and Luke Ball with you on Grandstand AFL. So that's our cool team. The story of the night, St Kilda, they kicked the first 5 goals. They led by 32 points in the second term before the Western Bulldogs kicked 4 goals in about a 10-minute burst before half-time. So they drew within 5 points at the half. And then in the third quarter, just as it looked like the Dogs had got their game up and going, St Kilda took over again. They ended up kicking the last 8 goals of the match. And outside of a 10-minute burst where the Dogs kicked 4 goals, they kicked only one other major for the rest of the night. So that's an extraordinary way for it to pan out. The Bulldogs just with 1 goal outside of that 10-minute flurry late in the second quarter. St Kilda by 51 points. They're 2-0. The Western Bulldogs are 0-2, and they're back here in 5 days to play Thursday night footy against the Brisbane Lions. North Melbourne lead by a single point in the concluding stages over in Perth against the Dockers. This finished just a short time ago. Here's how we called it on Grandstand AFL.
North lead by 1 point. Fremantle inside their forward 50. Darcy palmed it down, ricochets off shins. It comes to Cox again. Somehow looks to work it forward. Fremantle can't rush it behind. It spills out to McDonald. He's tackled over the boundary line.
That's well played by the Kangaroos' defence, not to be
not give up that point. It wasn't Sheasel, was it?
It's hectic stuff.
Oh, it's a great game of footy.
It was Sheasel.
Throw in, still inside 50. Darcy with the fist. Can he find someone to connect with? Aish hooks it high to the hot spot. Players come from everywhere. Fisted away. Big kick out of the area from Curtis Taylor, but straight to the boundary. That will be a free kick. The crowd will roar, and Fremantle will have one last chance. Too far out to score. The kick comes into Ryan. He's still too far out. They've got to get it in. 80 metres out. Long to the goal square. Darcy's there. Jackson's there. Off a fist. In the goal square. North clear. North will win. Ball goes out of play. What happened first? Siren or free kick? Umpires have a chat. Which way is it going? Full time. Join in the chorus if you're a North fan. North have won by a point.
Is that not deliberate?
I think they're saying the ball didn't cross the line before the siren. We've heard a little bit of the North Melbourne song. The umpires are going to have a chat again here.
Can you change your decision?
Alex Pearce is coming in to talk to one of the field umpires and the boundary umpire. Luke McDonald comes across.
If they've made the call, it'll be the first time they've reversed the decision.
It's full time. North have won. North Melbourne win by a point at Perth Stadium.
I'm happy with that. That's the decision.
Well, they made the call. Howe threw it on the boot. He just wanted to get rid of it. And the call can only be that the siren had sounded before it crossed the line, because it would have been insufficient intent under anything else.
Yeah.
But
absolutely.
if the siren has sounded before the ball has crossed, and we'll be looking at this in the slow motion, I've no doubt. But North Melbourne, they hang on by the narrowest of margins. Alistair Clarkson, his reign at the Kangaroos begins with back-to-back wins.
What a night for North Melbourne over in the West. They led from the outset. They kicked the first 4 goals of the match, and in the end they hang on by a single point. Not without some controversy in the finish. Luke Ball and Mark Murphy, you were watching this in the box on the monitors. That's how it was called over in Perth moments ago with Clint Weldon, Dave Lindsay and Shane Woden. So North Melbourne by 1 point in the finish. They beat the Dockers. Explain the madness at the end, Bally.
Well, I think it was, I'm not sure who our caller was then, but really all the decision was that the siren went before the ball crossed the line. I mean, the Dockers were just peppering, weren't they? Banging it back in. There was twice where the ball was almost saved goalkeeper style on the goal line, because obviously a rush point would have levelled the scores. I think it was Curtis Taylor, and then whoever it was, I'm just looking at the replay again now, who kicked it out and was clearly going to be paid, or Daniel Howe, played deliberate, a free kick, but the ruling was made that the siren went before the ball crossed the line. Jeez, it was tight.
Which doesn't make sense to me, because
the
kick was deliberate out, but the siren went in between.
But I think when the siren goes, the ball's dead, doesn't it? Because think about it, the ball could have rolled 100 metres down the ground.
But if it rolled through for a score, it would
count.
Yeah.
And if it was like right near the point post and you whacked it out, and it hit the point post after the hit, surely that's deliberate, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's a good. I'm sure we'll get more about
the scoring one's the interesting comparison, isn't it? Which you're definitely right there. If the ball goes through, but right. So so it would have resulted in a shot, a tough shot from the junction. But certainly from the junction.
Yep.
where you'd think they certainly would have at least scored. So there'll be 2 points on the line.
There'll be heaps to talk about, obviously, in the madness of the finish, and we'll debate all this, I'm sure, for tomorrow and days to come. But just the winning and losing of it. So Clarkson wins again at North Melbourne. We saw this last year. There were 3 new coaches. They all started 2-0. Ross Lyon wins in Melbourne tonight. Alistair Clarkson wins in Perth. Brad Scott still to play tomorrow. Adam Kingsley, his team still to play tomorrow. So there's a chance that all of them, having won first up, could also go 2-0. But that's a disaster for the Dockers. So they were a top 6 team last year. They're one of the youngest teams in the competition, yes, but the Saints frustrated them and beat them here in Melbourne last week. They go home and they can't beat North Melbourne, who have won 9 games in 3 years.
Yeah, it's a bad start, isn't it, for Fremantle? Couldn't be much worse, really. They would have looked at that fixture and thought, well, Fremantle fans anyway, thinking, well, that's 2 easy wins to start the season for us and to get us underway. But it just shows you the impact of a new coach can have on a new list. And we all know the effect of what Alistair Clarkson had over at Hawthorn for all those years and winning 4 flags. But to turn that around so quickly and to get North Melbourne playing the sort of football they are and to get 2 wins from 2 to start off the season, it's a huge impact.
It's good for the comp, isn't it? It is. Yeah, it's great to have new life and teams, regenerating and challenging. It is early. Yeah, the Dockers they've got the Derby next week, so you'd think that they'd start raging favourites in that. And at some stage they wake up and think they've got Adelaide after that. So we can make snap judgments, can't we? After 2 weeks, but. I think as much as anything, it's a wake-up call for the Dockers. I mean, we just saw the last bit of that game, obviously, but it looks like the shackles, they threw them off and it was too late. And up until that point, they played a bit safe and conservative, and we saw that tonight. So for me, it's a bit of a wake-up call to these teams that if they want to play that way, you're not going to get too far in the competition this year.
It just shows you that from one season to the next, it just doesn't roll on, and your form from the following year doesn't necessarily mean you're going to come out that next year and just carry on from where you left off. You have to really dig deep again and start again. Nothing's taken for granted in this competition because it just doesn't happen for you. The comp's so even, you just can't turn off and expect it just to happen. So it's great, as you said, Bally, for the competition to see St Kilda winning their second game for the season tonight, and for North Melbourne to go over to the West and beat Fremantle. It's great.
I think on average there's at least 2 changes to the top 8 every year. There's always a side, generally from the bottom 10, that jumps up, not just to make the 8, but to make the top 4 the following year. So there's a long line of data now to show that there's always sort of one team that no one anticipated to be a real player and a premiership chance. We saw Collingwood come from 17th last year, obviously, to miss out on a spot in a grand final by a point, and already tonight a couple of upsets as such, with St Kilda 51-point winners here at Docklands over the Bulldogs. It was more the way they did it, kicking the last 8 goals, holding the Bulldogs to just 41 points tonight and just 5 goals. And then over in Perth, North Melbourne, who led from start to finish, hang on to win by a single point with a bit of controversy at the end, a deliberate out-of-bounds ruling that was made just milliseconds after the final siren went. So Fremantle weren't able to take their kick from 50 out, hard pressed against the boundary at left half forward. As a result, the full time was called, and North Melbourne beat the Dockers by a point. So North Melbourne 2-0. They're now 3rd on the premiership table. North Melbourne with 2 wins from 2 starts, and Fremantle, of course, 0-2. We will be getting some reaction from the St Kilda rooms shortly. The other results today, Saturday footy in round 2. In the twilight, it was Richmond by 32 points over Adelaide, and it was Collingwood by 71 points over Port Adelaide at the MCG. A couple of other interesting notes. Nat Fyfe was laid out for Fremantle, so some soreness there. Jai Amos took his place in the team. Obviously, the Dockers falling short, so no victory for them tonight. And Max Gawn, which is really the good news for the competition. There was still fears it may be a possible ACL. That's come back as a medial, and Melbourne anticipating 4 to 6 weeks will be...
No surgery?
No surgery. 4 to 6 weeks sideline with a medial. Saints winners here tonight by 51 points. Let's get into the winners' rooms. Karen Peterson, Kez.
Thanks, Corby. Seb Ross has been good enough to join us after the St Kilda Saints got up by 51 points over the Dogs tonight. 2-0 start. Must be a nice way to start season 2023.
Yeah, it sure is. I think it really just, we've put into place a whole new sort of game plan, new system, and it's nice to get some reward for all the hard work we've done over the pre-season, but just got to keep sticking at it because it's working.
Part of that new game plan must be to restrict points against St Kilda. So you were able to keep Freo last week to 52. This week, able to keep the Bulldogs to 41.
Yeah, I think we don't really set out to really try and keep. Obviously, it's the aim of the game to not get scored against, but I think the way we play and the pressure we try and put on really helps our defenders really get safe and set behind the ball, and not too many scores are getting through at the moment. But like I said, the Dogs challenge us at times. We can see when teams can get a run on against us, they can score really quickly. So. But I thought our boys, to their credit, they were really sharp tonight. The other mids, I thought Brad Crouch and Steely really led the way with the pressure, and then down back, Wilkes and Doug and Sinks is just running the show down there at the moment. So it's pretty awesome to watch.
Much has been made of the St Kilda injury list at the moment. You throw together a makeshift forward line made up of a lot of young guys. Mitch Owens, Filippo and Caminiti come in tonight, kicked 3, 3 and 2 respectively. Can you just give us an insight into how they fitted into the new game plan, given that they probably weren't thinking coming into the season they'd be fronting up and having as big an impact as what they are at the moment?
Yeah, look, they've just really bought in, and they're bringing that effort. They're really undermanned down there, and we didn't help them too often down there. We were sort of bombing it quite bomby for long periods of time, and Jones and Bruce and all these guys were just intercept marking it, and we weren't able to keep it in our forward half for too long. So if we can get a little bit better, like we did in the was it the third? Early in the third, I think we started to lower our eyes and hit them up because they're great. They're great players at hitting up with the footy, and you saw their scoring prowess. So I love the confidence of Filippo and Caminiti so early on. You see the Scud mark it about 50 metres out, doesn't even turn around. And but we know he's capable of that. He's been doing it all pre-season. I love the confidence on the kid, and they've had a bright start to their career.
And just a word on yourself, it's hard but to notice that you spend more time on the phone on the bench than any other player on the ground. Is that a role that is specifically cut out for you, or that you talk about during the week, or is it just something that you naturally do?
I think I've sort of always done it. I think I was our most senior player out there. Healy's played a few more games than me, but being around that midfield and the stars they've got around the ball, they tried to throw a fair bit at us, and I was on minutes tonight, so I was on the bench quite a bit. So Lenny got down the line, and because they were changing quite a bit, and so anything Lenny was seeing upstairs, he was just communicating down to me, and then I could get it out to the boys. But no, I don't know. Lenny and we've played together, so we've got a really good bond and a really good relationship, and that's how it works.
I'll throw you upstairs, our experts, Mark Murphy and Luke Ball.
Seb, Mark Murphy here. Well done tonight in your own performance, mate. I'd be interested to know the halftime message from Ross. You guys played a terrific quarter and a half of football, and the Bulldogs finished off that second quarter all guns blazing. It looked like they had all the momentum. What was the message from Ross at that halftime break?
Well, we knew going in the Bulldogs can score really heavily, really quickly, and really get some momentum going. And us boys all walking in, we thought they just got on top of the ground ball all over the ground, whether it was pre-clearance or post-clearance. But I think in that second quarter, they really just dominated behind the ball. Like I alluded to earlier, we were kicking it in too high, and they were just owning the air back there, and then really able to bounce off half back. So you probably would have noticed upstairs a bit of a change in our ball movement in the third quarter, which I thought really worked for us. But so we like to sort of keep, I don't know, seeing what we can do with our offense and changing it up, because teams are going to have run-ons and at times a game, so we've got to be flexible in the way that we play. But it was just don't panic. We knew they would have momentum, but we just need to change a few things.
Yeah, it looked like to me you had great balance in going slow, being methodical, and then having that run and dash. I remember Ross Lyon when he first got to the football club talking about how you've got a bunch of runners there who love running. So is that something that he's brought to the football club and trying to make guys just play with their weapons?
Yeah, I think so. And we've had I know everyone says it, but I reckon I've been around a little while now, and it was certainly one of the toughest pre-seasons I've had over my time. But that's part of where we've built some confidence. I think the boys, most of the guys out there tonight, we had ripping pre-seasons, and we're out there full time. So you sort of can't. It's a bit hard, to, as you know, to have an interrupted pre-season. But I know our injury list is big, but most of the boys out there playing have had uninterrupted pre-seasons and are running on top of the ground.
Why was it hard? Was it hard in terms of running, or was it just more the contest sort of stuff? Because Ross Lyon teams over the years have always been really hard at the contest. Was it a bit of both, or was it something that's really stood out to you?
Probably more so the running side of things. I think Ross is not too, especially after Big Maxi went down, Ross is not too keen on the boys bashing and crashing at training, but we sort of weren't getting our work in too much in the contest drills or anything like that. It was more still getting a significant amount of football training in and implementing our game plan, but certainly probably running a lot more.
Except one of those big runners is Mason Wood, and he's a guy who obviously discarded by North Melbourne and is unheralded in a sense, but he seems to have put together, I'm sure he put together the big pre-season, and he's reaping the rewards. He's had 2 terrific games to start his season.
Yeah, and I think, I know Mace is the ultimate professional. I think he won our best clubman last year, so he's really taken on that role and really bringing the younger guys along with him and making pre-season really competitive, because he's the ultimate competitor, and he sort of leads the way throughout the pre-season. So it's great to see him get some reward for the effort. And I think we always knew what he was capable of at North Melbourne, playing forward in particular, but just with his running ability and being that marking type on the wing. But as you saw last week, we needed him forward, and he went forward and kicked 2 goals for us, and probably puts the game away for us. So he's a really important player for us, and just loving seeing what he's doing at the moment.
And big Rowan Marshall in the ruck. Obviously, Paddy Ryder's moved on. I love the battle tonight. I thought he just shaded, obviously too young, star ruckman of the competition. I thought he just shaded Tim English in the end. How's he handling that, that full responsibility of being that number 1 ruckman? Have you seen that?
I think he's really relishing the role. He obviously, I reckon he took a bit back seat, particularly centre bounce last year, but another guy that is just an absolute workhorse and does a lot around the ground for us and just competes and just doesn't stop competing. He's probably first picked every week. The boys absolutely love playing with him. He's such a team first guy, and as long as we can keep him healthy, I reckon he'll have a massive year.
Seb Ross with us on Grandstand AFL. Seb, it's Corbin Middlemass here. Big week for the Saints. Obviously 150th, a really birthday celebration this week. The subs celebrating their anniversary. What do you got planned for the week ahead?
I'm not too sure what we've got planned. I'm sure there'll be a lot of vibe around the club and probably a little bit of media and that earlier in the week. But that'll sort of all been going on probably earlier in the week, and then we'll sort of settle into our normal week and try not to be too phased by it. But it's a big week for the club. It's going to be great. It's going to be a great night at the G against Essendon. So hopefully heaps of fans are there where we can really celebrate. And from our end, hopefully we can come out and produce what we've been producing and put on a really good show again, and hopefully come away with the 4 points, but just keep making our fans really proud of us.
I saw Jack Sinclair modelling the jumper during the week with the white collar. Looks pretty fresh. A little throwback for the boys next Saturday night.
Yeah, I think Sinks probably looks pretty good in anything at the moment. He's got a few things going on with the hair and the cars, and he had the 98 Adidas boots on or something.
It's all good.
Yeah, he likes his fashion, but no, he's... Oh, how good was he tonight? Gee whiz.
He's enjoying having the original 35 back.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that original 35 would be pretty proud of what he's producing at the moment.
Do they have actually just asked, have they had a calf off yet? Have they compared calves yet?
Not that I've noticed, but it would be pretty close. We should do that.
It would be close.
Yeah.
Seb, you would have grown up an Essendon fan as well?
Yeah, well, Dad was a mad Hawthorn fan, so I was sort of half with them, but then, family ties. Watched Essendon with one eye and Hawks with the other.
Absolutely. Appreciate your time, Seb. Good luck next Saturday night.
Thanks, boys.
The Saints 2-0. Seb Ross, first cousins with
Joe Watson.
Joe Watson. Yeah, so that's the Essendon link on that front, and we'll get the Saints and the Bombers next Saturday night at the G. So we'll be there next Saturday night for that. They kicked the last 8 goals tonight. To do a job on the Bulldogs in the end, a 51-point win. Murph, you'll be on Grandstand AFL Sunday tomorrow from 12 noon in the studio.
Look forward to it, Corby. I'm looking forward to the top 10.
Yes, the Cheesy Game Show, that'll be back. I dare say we will have a bit to say about the Western Bulldogs tomorrow, so there'll be plenty of a review on the Dogs on that front. Plus celebrating North Melbourne's thrilling victory, so a 1-point win in the end tonight over Fremantle, over in Perth. Who's got the votes in the ABC Footballer of the Year?
Oh, we just tossed it around like a hot potato there. Because I think the point was there was a hard one to give tonight, and that's a good sign for the Saints. All Saints, obviously. There were a few Dogs that tried pretty hard, but they were comprehensively outplayed. So we've landed on one vote to Rowan Marshall. Yeah, I thought it was a terrific. I think Tim English was probably one of the Bulldogs' best, but it was a critical matchup in the game. Obviously, with both midfields being reasonably strong, and I just thought Marshall at the start and then his work across the ground was able to give the Saints first use in that field position, which allowed them to really control the ground. So 1 vote to Rowan Marshall. We're going to give 2 to Brad Crouch. Pretty even performance through the midfield, but 9 tackles. I think he really led the way there, and we're going to give 3 to Jack Sinclair.
I think that's fair enough. 3 for Sinclair, 2 for Brad Crouch, 1 for Marshall. The Saints are shut out with the votes. Thanks to Luke Ball in the ABC Footballer of the Year. So the last 8 goals for the Saints, they win by 51. The footy tomorrow, so we're on air from 12 noon Australian Eastern Daylight Time for Grandstand AFL Sunday with myself, Mark Murphy and Brett Delidio. Following that, the broadcast game during the days, Essendon and Gold Coast. Obviously, that's going to be the match which you'll hear from 3:20. Our coverage starts from 2:30 here at Docklands. Before that in Sydney, it is the Swans and the Hawks from 1 o'clock. And then from 6:20 Eastern Daylight Time out in Perth, the Eagles and the Giants is the nightcap. How about this one as a way to finish? Strange things going on in the world of sport. In the Super Netball tonight, another power outage. This time in Adelaide, the match between the Swifts and the Thunderbirds was declared a draw with scores level at 25 apiece at halftime when the power went out. So
electricity is expensive these days, Paul.
Oh no,
it is.
Lights out last night at the MC at the Gabba, and then and today in the Super Netball world. Thanks to Luke Ball. Thanks to Mark Murphy, thanks to Jess Webster and Karen Peterson downstairs, to Andrea back in the studio, to Stu Birchmore. That's us done from Docklands tonight. We'll be back on Grandstand AFL Sunday. The Saints by 51 over the Dogs.